I miss when the supplemental draft was exciting. There'd be like one prospect that can go in the 6th round. Everybody would be posting clips online.
Wasn't Josh Gordon in the supplemental draft?
Josh Gordon was the most electric supplemental draft pick of all time.
All right, hold on. Now, all right, tangent.
Supplemental draft picks.
Supplemental draft history. Wait, Bernie Kosar was a first round supplemental pick? I didn't know Chris Carter was either.
Oh, so the supplemental draft used to be like way bigger. Oh, here we go. Bernie Kosar NFL draft controversy. He announced he was foregoing his final 2 years of college football in a press conference. He grew up a Browns fan, and he announced at the press conference he'd like to play for the Browns. The NFL at the time said only seniors and college grads could enter the 1985 NFL draft, and Kosar was still a underclassman at Miami in 1985. So he announced that he had arranged an expedited academic plan. This sounds way too like Wolf of Wall Street, Aerotime International for me. But he announced the expedited academic plan with 18 credits in the spring. 18 credits in the spring in 1985 and an additional 6 credits in the summer that would permit him to graduate from the U in time to meet the draft's eligibility requirements. In June, the University of Miami notified the NFL that Kosar had met the course requirements to graduate. Seeking to obtain Kosar in the NFL draft, the Vikings on April 9th in 1985 traded with the Oilers to obtain a top draft selection and announced that they were intending to take him. The Browns had quietly traded their first round selections for 1985 and 1986, their 3rd round pick and their 6th selection in 1986 with the Bills for the Bills' first pick in the 1985 supplemental draft, which paved the way for the Browns to select him.
Why didn't Arch Manning do this?
The Browns and Kosar masterminded this. For the old heads listening to this and they can't believe that we didn't know this, I apologize. Trevor and I were not alive when this all happened, but amazing draft story.
Weren't even a thought. My dad was pounding Miller Lite pitchers on Wednesday nights.
Yeah. I have a picture of my dad around this time frame down the shore at a bar around a table with a ton of empty Budweisers wearing a shirt that says, "Avoid hangovers, stay drunk." And you think I'm supposed to know about Bernie Kosar eluding certain teams for the draft?
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rogers. Very exciting episode here for you guys. Another post-free agency type of episode, but we are beginning to work towards the 2025 NFL Draft when it comes to updating the team needs. So that's what we're going to do here on this program. We're going to take a look at every single team in the NFL, what they did in free agency, update their depth charts a little bit, talk to you guys about some draft positions that they have, not just in the first round, but some options in the second and third. And essentially, we're just going to update the team needs after these additions and subtractions have been made to the roster. Connor, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, man. A lot of movement. I've been working on my first post-free agency mock draft for NBC.
Ooh.
And yeah, it's not going to drop till the beginning of next week, but it feels like starting over sometimes because you got to look at every transaction the team just made over the last 2 weeks. And then some things change, some don't, but it's been a good exercise. This is kind of a good way for us to reset as well.
This is also an excellent podcast to let your voice be heard here,
yes,
right? Because like Connor said, it's a reset. We've been talking about these teams and basically the same team needs for them since December. The only things that have really changed is, okay, as the prospects have sort of gone up and down, we've watched some other guys, we've gotten to final scouting reports, we had the Combine, we had East-West Shrine Bowl, we had the Senior Bowl, all that kind of stuff. That's where a lot of the movement has happened. Now the movement's happened on the team side of things, so it's a whole new ball game when we talk about prospects that you want your favorite team to draft and positions that you really want them to hit. So throughout this entire show, no matter who you are a fan of, sound off in the comment section. Let's hear from you. YouTube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. That's the best way to do it. If you guys are watching this video and you are not subscribed to the channel, we'd really appreciate it. Please do so. Our family is starving. We need the subscriptions to make sure that we can, continue to put food on the table for our families. No, but seriously, we would love for you to subscribe. It's going to be a fun journey here for this podcast and this show all the way up to the 2025 NFL Draft, and we're going to give you something for every single team. But we also, like I said, want you guys to make this a community as well. We'd love to hear from you. Alphabetical order? I feel like that's the best way to do it. Just start in alphabetical order. Just go all the way down. Start with A.
And then if you really have to be a heathen and search for your team, you probably can do that easier if we're in alphabetical order.
That's true. You can. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals, which is alphabetically the first team here in the NFL. So let's talk about some of the moves that the Arizona Cardinals made here in free agency. They signed Josh Sweat, which was their big addition there. They had an edge rush need, and we'll talk about whether or not we still think that's a big need there. Dalvin Tomlinson got a damn good deal, a 2 years, $29 million star. They're obviously expecting big things from him on the interior. Added Akeem Davis-Gaither as well. Got Jacoby Brissett in there to back up Kyler Murray. Re-signed a handful of guys, like re-signed Evan Brown on the interior offensive line, Zay Jones, LJ Collier on the defensive line, Baron Browning, which I actually think was pretty significant for them. I really do. And, they're picking at 16. That's where this team is selecting in the first round. And they've got their first round pick, a second round pick, a third round pick, a fourth round pick. A lot of it is very standard here for the Arizona Cardinals. Connor, when you look at sort of the free agency moves that they've made, sort of how we saw this team before, what do you think about their team needs now? Is edge rusher still a need for this team? I know you're a BJ Ojulari guy. So I know you're not ready to give up on him yet after some injury-riddled seasons, but is edge rusher still a need for you here? Defensive line, what do you think about the Cardinals?
I don't think so. I mean, you could sit there and say maybe more so it's not now a pressing need. When you look at the roster, they got to see some guys play. It's good to go out and get a Josh Sweat because you know what he can do. It's great to go out and get a Dalvin Tomlinson as that beef for the interior because now it frees up some space for everybody else. But at the end of the day, it's not just Ojulari. Like, you need to kind of look at this group and let some young guys get a real shot here up front. So I think really when it comes down to it, this isn't, I wouldn't look at them and go, they have to take one in the first round anymore. I think they could be a little bit more wide open where, what if a top corner falls into their lap in that spot? Do you beef up the secondary in that regard? What if there is, a way that they kind of want to re-envision this offensive line in some kind of way? What if they think that they need a number 2 wide receiver from Marvin Harrison Jr. because they like Michael Wilson, they like Zay Jones and Greg Dortch, but they kind of want to get a little bit more out of that spot. I think it just opened the door, Trevor, for them to be a little bit more BPA than they ever were.
Yeah. No, and I think that is a fair assessment of where this team is and sort of what they could be. So I figure a good way to do this is probably to break it up a little bit. And we can combine this. We can get creative with this, but like identifying primary, secondary, and ancillary needs. So if we want to do like their top 3 needs and sort of tier things out like that for them, maybe that might be a good way to do it. Primary needs for this team, I feel like corner is.
I think so. I don't.
You think we should identify that as well? I guess we don't need to rank the needs, but we should just give out 3.
I wouldn't say you have to rank the needs because there's just too many teams where it's very even.
Yeah.
But I think corner's a need, and maybe there's some Arizona fans that are like, I like Garrett Williams, I like Max Melton, I like Sean Murphy Bunting, and that's not the point. Like, see, these guys have more potential, and a lot of them are young players, but I don't think this team has a guy I project as a number 1 corner for the long term. Like, if they felt comfortable with the health of Will Johnson and he fell to them, I like the fit of Will Johnson with this team.
Yeah, I do too. I really like that selection for them every time that we make it in the mock draft format. So I think corner certainly is a need for them. Man, I like Josh Sweat. I like BJ Ojulari. All jokes aside, I'm not really ready to give up on it. They still have Zaven Collins. They drafted Xavier Thomas. They brought back Baron Browning. Obviously, if there's an edge rusher that you feel like you can't pass on, maybe you do so at 16. But I'm with you, man. I don't know if I see edge rusher as like a primary need for this team anymore. I feel like I would rather look at interior offensive line, maybe just offensive line in general, right? They have Paris Johnson Jr., but then Jonah Williams, I believe, is on the last year of his contract, right? I think he signed a 2-year deal.
That sounds right.
I think he's entering the last year of his deal. So shoot,
and
man.
If you took a guy that you think is your long-term answer at right tackle, but you played him at a guard spot,
I would love that for
That's kind of where I look at. We know they want a hard-nosed running game with both James Conner and a bigger workload for Trey Benson this year.
Yep.
So
I'm thinking offensive tackle, and then I know they still have Darius Robinson. They obviously just signed Dalvin Tomlinson.
Yeah, it's a big year for Darius Robinson.
For sure. They have Budda Baker, but I like that they have Adrian Taylor Demerson there.
one more interior defensive lineman.
Okay.
Because the class is so good that if they take another guy for this rotation in the first 4 rounds, I think that's a good idea.
I'm with you. I'm cool with that. So corner. So for the Cardinals, we're thinking outside corner. We're thinking cornerback because I think Garrett Williams, I think Max Melton, and they had somebody else on the roster. I can't remember who.
Sean Murphy Bunting.
Well, no. I was saying for the slot, Keitrell Clark. All 3 of those guys, in my opinion, could play the slot. So for corner, it's like, can you get an outside specific corner? If you think that somebody is an upgrade over Sean Murphy Bunting, I think that's where corner comes into it. So for the Cardinals, some updated team needs post free agency corner. Offensive tackle / really just offensive line. Maybe if you can get one of those, if it's an Armand Membu, a Kelvin Banks Jr., somebody who could play inside for you and then kick out to offensive tackle when Jonah Williams' deal is up. And then maybe another interior defensive lineman as well to make sure the trenches are where they need to be. I feel good about that. Atlanta Falcons. All right, they signed Leonard Floyd. They signed Divine Diablo, Morgan Fox as well. Signed Mike Ford for 2 years, $4 million at corner. Signed Jordan Fuller at safety as well for losing out on Josh Simmons, not bringing him back. Big re-signing there for Mike Hughes, who gets a 3-year, $18 million deal to play corner. A couple of guys after that, they released Grady Jarrett. They signed Jake Matthews to the extension. The Falcons picking 15th, so they're not too far from the range that we talked about there for the Cardinals, just one spot in front of them. They pick first round, second round, nothing in the third round, fourth round, and then 2 7th round picks. They don't have a fifth rounder or a 6th rounder. Yeah. So what do we think about the Falcons? Do we think that they still got to go edge rusher? Because that's where I'm at. I feel like we can't take edge off the board, even though, they're adding Leonard Floyd. They're hoping the guys last year are all able to step up in different ways. I still think it's edge rusher is where we start here. But anything else there on top of that?
Center. They lost Drew Dalman to the Bears. I would look to take a center. Even if you're not going to start him, I would draft a center at some point in this draft. Whether it's one of the top guys like Jared Wilson from Georgia or Jake Majors from Texas. I know it's not a deep center class, but they fit what they want to do offensively. So yeah, edge rusher and center really jumped out to me. And then, it's kind of weird. It's kind of crazy, but you could sit here and say, man, maybe they need a more traditional tight end in this offense.
I looked at their roster earlier and I thought the exact same thing. I thought to myself, this is actually a pretty good draft to trade Kyle Pitts.
Yes.
When you get to day 2 or maybe even day 3, if one of those teams that wanted to dip into this good tight end class didn't get the chance to do so, you call them up and you get some sort of a pick for Kyle Pitts at this point. And if they do, there ain't really anybody else on the roster. Like, you got to replace him. They have Charlie Warner. They brought back Felipe Frank. Shout out, Gator great, converted quarterback.
It's actually pretty amazing for Felipe. you gotta respect it.
100% I do. Gators legend, Tennessee Volunteers fans, they know the name very well. Sorry for that subtle shot, any Volunteers fans out here. We do love you. But I mean, we talk about wide receiver as well, right? They have Drake London as the wide receiver 1. Darnell Mooney played above my expectations. Darnell Mooney, you have my respect. You do. I doubted you last year, and you were able to play well, which I love to see that. But then it's Casey Washington, Kadero Hodges, they brought back.
Ray McLeod had a solid year.
Ray McLeod,
but
for sure.
You're obviously, I know what you're saying here.
I'm kind of saying receiver. So wide receiver / tight end for this team, I feel like is the third need for them.
Man, this would be a nice team for Jack Besh, huh? You look at the blocking element he has, where the offensive coordinator is from, and how the Rams use, Puka and Kupp and all their kinds of receivers. Besh would be a fun fit on this team.
So that's what I think about the Falcons. Edge rusher, center, and then some sort of a receiver. Depending on if you're moving on from Kyle Pitts or not. It doesn't feel like he's going to be in the long-term plans, regardless of if you're moving on from him via trade or not. So some sort of receiver. Getting a good receiver in here, which they've got limited draft picks. Like I said, it's a first rounder, second rounder, a fourth rounder, nothing in the 5th or 6th. So they don't have a lot of assets to use, but those are the 3 positions that I think the Falcons could use after free agency. The Baltimore Ravens are next. didn't make a ton of noise outside of their own team, but the big one is, Connor, they brought back Ronnie Stanley. So we don't have to sit here and talk about how desperate an offensive tackle need is for them. They bring back Ronnie Stanley. They brought back Patrick Hart as well. Tylan Wallace they brought back. They re-signed Ben Cleveland. They signed DeAndre Hopkins, so I suppose like that was their big splash that they made there, whatever you think Devontae Adams has left in the tank. When you look at Baltimore, what would you say their needs are? Like when you're going through that post-free agency mock draft and you get to Baltimore, we had edge rusher on the board for them before free agency. They didn't really do anything to address that. Do we still think that's a high need here for the Baltimore Ravens?
It feels like defensive depth. Like they need another corner in this rotation. They need another safety. I think they could use another big body up front on the defensive line. I would say that just jumps out to me, honestly. And then once again, you have to kind of wonder, although the Ravens are really good at like next man up, if they move on from Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler might just be able to fill the void.
I totally agree.
Where I don't look at them and go, hey, if they move on from Mark Andrews, like, they'll be okay. They develop on the offense in general, like the next guy up mentality. They're really good at that. You see it on their offensive line right now when you see Andrew Voorhees and Daniel Falele and Roger Rosengarten penciled in to start for them. It's just what they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think the first level and the third level of the defense is kind of how I look at it.
Yeah, I think maybe safety, although I'm only saying that just for flexibility standpoint.
Right.
Like I love our Darius Washington. I love Kyle Hamilton, but like
sick. Yeah.
You know, if you're moving Hamilton more towards the slot, you know, now that they don't have, oh my goodness, who the outside Brandon Stevens is no longer on the team.
Jets.
So TJ Tampa could slide into that if you feel good about it, but he was drafted so far lower than we thought he was going to be in last year's draft. Like, do they actually have full faith, believe in him at that spot? Maybe they do, and we're not really talking about the need for any secondary versatility, but I think interior defensive line is a really good call, just making sure that you have the depth there. I agree. I wouldn't say tight end. Maybe guard, because you're right. Voorhees is there now. Patrick McCarry is gone. I feel edge, corner, interior defensive line, or would we say that guard over corner? Maybe it's interior offensive line over.
It just scares you. They're one corner injury away from kind of saying, now what?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's kind of how I look at it. I'm curious what they think of the development of like Jalen Armour Davis. You know, you brought up Tampa, which is a really important one. I liked him more than the NFL, clearly. I thought he was a day 2 player and he didn't go day 2.
Yeah.
So, but like little spoiler, I have them going edge in my mock draft. It was just a situation where I thought one of the best players on the board was a pass rusher, and I thought they needed more pass rush help. And a lot of these guys can play multiple alignments up front on the defensive line, and I think that just fits them.
Yeah. So Ravens, we're going edge, we're going interior defensive line, probably leaning that direction in the first round, if we're being honest, now that they don't have to really go after offensive tackle with a glaring need. I think that frees them up to go defensive trenches, then corner. Like you said, if one of those corners go down, it's thin for this team, and you gotta have a little bit more depth than they currently have on the roster. So maybe they don't look at that in the first round, because they're picking at number 27. Then they've got a second round pick, a third round pick, a fourth round pick, actually 2 fourth round comps, a fifth, and then 4 sixth round picks.
That's the Baltimore way.
Day 3 dream right there. We're going to be saying the Ravens name so much on the Day 3 draft show. Let's go to the Buffalo Bills next. Alphabetical order, of course. So, I love what the Buffalo Bills have done. I was a skeptic of what this team was going to be, given what they lost last year in free agency, how they cut a lot of the veterans, a lot of the core players that were in the previous sort of winning window. But the winning window, well, it stayed wide open. They played very well this season, above my own expectations, and now I love how they slingshot that this offseason. They signed Joey Bosa, so okay, maybe he's not the Joey Bosa of old, but hopefully he can be at least a reliable veteran presence there for you on the defensive line. They signed Josh Palmer, and not to like a nothing deal. 3 years, $36 million deal for Josh Palmer. I mean, that's a decent chunk of change. They signed Larry Ogunjobi, but then he got popped for doing anabolic steroids. So
him and Michael Hoyt, both their signings up front.
Dude,
that's actually kind of nuts.
So it was PEDs, right?
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Performance enhancers.
Dude, they listen to the pod.
I know.
They listen to the pod.
I'm not here to hate.
Because all right, so you do stare, guys. We don't know if they did steroids or not. Okay, I'm just getting that out there.
Well, we're being told they did.
They did. I've got it in my ear right now.
It's public knowledge.
They do steroids. Go through the workout with the teams, sign the deal, and then what do you know? So all you do is now you
brilliant.
You still have the gains.
Brilliant bag getting.
You get 6-game suspension. Guess what? The gains are still there.
Rest the body. Enjoy your 6 games off. Come
100%.
back on fire. Crazy.
So this time, I said to somebody,
Finessing.
actually, this is brilliant by Brandon Beane, because normally when you get suspended, all the guarantees in your deal are like void. So it's like, oh, okay, we signed the deal. Oh, you got suspended. They're all now the whole contract is flexible. I have no idea if that's actually the case on what happened here. Please don't report that. Please don't write that in the papers. Don't quote me on it. But I thought that whole scenario was hilarious. Just signing the guys and then immediately they're suspended. Like 3
they
days
can't play.
later.
They can't play for us. It's the dinner meme. You're hungry?
Oh yeah, for nothing.
Incredible work by Brandon Beane. He gave his fan base the dopamine of free agency, and then didn't have to pay the bill. Hats off to a true king.
They also signed Laviska Shenault, not ready to give up on him, won't let the dream die. They extended a lot of their great players, Josh Allen, Greg Rousseau, Khalil Shakir, Terrell Bernard. They traded away Kyrie Elam. They released Von Miller. So I think that those were additions by subtractions, honestly, for sort of what they all were and what fans thought they were going to be the roster, and then what they actually were on the field. It just did not match that. So a lot of movement there for the Buffalo Bills. What do we think the team needs are for this team? They're a very complete football team.
I mean, it's a good roster. Yeah.
It's a really good roster that's obviously built to compete. What do we think? I mean, do your eyes go anywhere in particular when you talk about this team?
It's funny because last year I just thought they were a team where I went, man, I'd like to see them upgrade at safety. But, you look at, they bring back DeMar Hamlin on a cheap deal. Mm-hmm. They drafted Cole Bishop last year. I have no problem with Taylor Rapp being a starter for this team. Mm-mm. I was just wondering if that was an area they can upgrade next to Rapp between, and maybe they think Cole Bishop can eventually get on the field even more.
Yeah.
Honestly, with the injury history of Bosa, I would still take a designated pass rusher.
Okay.
Like in the mold of like Josiah Stewart, that kind of guy. Because, man, if you get 10 games out of Joey Bosa, that's a win for the Bills, right?
Yeah.
Like that's just where we are. And they were honest about it in the press conference. They know they need to find a way to have a plan for him to stay healthy. So I don't think they should be done addressing pass rusher, and I think they need a real fat guy for the interior of their defensive line. That's not Ogunjobi, right?
Yeah.
It's not Ed Oliver. Like, they need a 2-gapping fat guy for this defensive line. Yeah. I would love to see Kenneth Grant on this team, or Jamari Caldwell, or Jordan Phillips. There's a whole list of names they can get. So I guess that's a team need. 2-gapping fat guy and safety. What do you think of that?
Write that? I'm actually going to write that in the notes, so if Ryan puts this on the screen at all, it's just going to say 2-gapping fat guy.
Voila.
That's what we got there. I wonder if corner's sort of a need for this team, just the depth that like we talked about before. Oh, before we get too far from the defensive line, they do have Javon Solomon, who's my boy, who had a ton of production when he was
There's a DPR right there.
So he could be. They might feel good about him.
Respect short king pass rushers.
We will, of course, especially the ones that have abnormally long arms when it comes to being short. Because now you got to look at them and you go, all right, well, now you win with leverage and you have long arms. So that was Javon Solomon for me. So not ready to give up on that at any point this upcoming season. I think he gets a fair shot there. I don't know. I mean,
what do you think of the offense? You have any takes on the offense?
It's kind of what they want it to be, right? I mean,
smash mouth football, and now they have speed at wide receiver.
I mean, they scored a shit ton of points last year, and it's hard to believe that they wouldn't again.
Right? You have Josh Allen back there.
They don't have Amari Cooper, and I think Amari
Cooper cooked beyond belief with them.
I don't know about beyond belief.
Beyond belief.
I don't know about beyond belief. You could have believed how cooked he was. They wouldn't
pay him to come back.
It wasn't beyond belief.
He couldn't pay them to come back. They were like, Josh Palmer, upgrade. Sorry. It happens to everyone.
The conversations were, All right, so we could sign and pay Josh Palmer 3 years, $36 million, or Amari Cooper will pay us $36 million.
We'll take Josh Palmer. Thank you.
We'll take Josh Palmer.
Please and thank you. I think you're onto it with corner depth, by the way, because, man, every time a corner went down for this team and they had to put Kaiir Elam in the game, like there was just a cut up on every network of Kaiir Elam getting burnt. And they were like, oh, man, we got to put Kaiir Elam back in the game. I think they probably want to avoid that scenario again.
Yeah, I do still think that cornerback depth is a big need for them. So for the Bills, we came up with edge rusher, maybe a designated pass rusher type of player, depending on how they feel about Javon Solomon, a two-gapping fat guy.
Bingo.
And then a cornerback, which brings us to our next team, the Carolina Panthers. Very busy this offseason. Now, they missed on Milton Williams. It was reported that, okay, he had agreed to a deal with the Carolina Panthers, and that didn't happen. I think he maybe got more money from the Patriots, ends up signing with New England Patriots, but that's not to say the Panthers didn't do a lot of good things. I think they did. Deshaun Wharton, it's a big deal for him to be a strong sort of run-stopping presence for them, that 3-year, $54 million deal. But, you get him to hopefully free up Derek Brown. You do the same thing with Bobby Brown, another interior defensive lineman. They brought in Patrick Jones II to play with Jadeveon Clowney and hopefully upgrade the edge and the pass rushing there, which I do like that move. Rico Dowdle, you sign him to a 1-year deal to spell Chuba Hubbard while Jonathan Brooks recovers from another ACL surgery. Brought in Trayvon Merrick, re-signed J.C. Horn, re-signed a lot of the guys that were sort of the, I would just say the depth players of the team. Tommy Tremble, Braden Christensen, Andy Dalton's back, Austin Corbett's back. They released Miles Sanders, but we already talked about the addition there with Rico Dowdle. What do we think about the Panthers here? Number 8 overall pickup for them, obviously, and what do we think they could do with it? What positions are they going to go after?
I mean, I look at this team, and right away, and it might not be their first need, but I am really interested in the idea of what the long-term receiver room looks like. Obviously, you took Leggett last year. You got flashes from him. Mm-hmm. You bring back Thielen because he's a comfort blanket for Bryce, which I like that idea. You'll see if you can get even more out of Jalen Coker. David Moore just finds a random week to go nuclear, but you can't predict when that 1 week is. So I think they need another young wide receiver in this room, maybe learning behind Thielen for the future, and might be more of that kind of go-to in the offense. So that comes to mind right away. I think they like the continuity that they have on the offensive line. They're probably excited about what Jatavion Sanders can do as a pass catcher in this offense as well. Mm-hmm. They have a legitimate backup quarterback in Andy Dalton. They signed Rico Dowdle because with Jonathan Brooks' injury, you could argue maybe they take another running back. But you sign Rico Dowdle with Chuba. It's, I would say really edge rusher and wide receiver are the glaring needs for them.
I would agree. Those are the two that I wrote down immediately. And we've talked about the Panthers, and if you look at them from a short-term approach, the conversation that we've had about them with the receiver position is they don't really need a receiver. They need a wide receiver 1, right?
Yes.
They have Jalen Coker, who they feel good about. This is just for 2025. They have Jalen Coker, who they feel good about. You have Xavier Leggett, who you're going to give snaps to because you want him to improve and play better and be more of a consistent player for you. You have Adam Thielen, who signed that 1-year deal. You signed David Moore to a 1-year deal. But Connor, it does look interesting if, sort of like what we talked about with the Baltimore Ravens in the cornerback room, not just injury, but if you even fast forward a year, there's a reality where Carolina could be looking at, okay, what if Xavier Leggett doesn't take the next step?
Yep.
What if he's just like a wide receiver 3, maybe wide receiver 2 for you? Adam Thielen's going to be 36 years old in 2026.
That's
so
amazing.
He's probably not going to be there. David Moore only signed a 1-year, $2 million deal, so he's probably not going to be there because he's over the age of 30 now. So you might be looking at a wide receiver room that is basically just a low ROI Xavier Leggett for where you drafted him. And Jalen Coker, who is an undrafted free agent, who, all due respect, played great last year. But it's like a year from now, if you don't have any wide receiver, if you don't draft a wide receiver in this upcoming draft, things can look barren for you very quickly with Carolina. And you don't want that to be the case with Bryce Young, obviously in his rookie contract, and you want him to continue to only play better. So I definitely agree with you. I now look at Carolina, And it's less of what do you need for 2025, and it's more of I would take a wide receiver because I think you need it, whether it's wide receiver 1 this year or wide receiver 2 next year or something like that. So,
are you speaking the T-Mac language at 8? Or you think it can go beyond round 1?
I think T-Mac should be on the board for them at 8.
Yeah.
I am now more open to the fact that beyond pick 8, they should also be considering other wide receivers.
I'm with you.
Because things can get ugly in that wide receiver room very quickly if they are not careful, or if things just don't go the way that they want to for some of their players. So I'm more into Carolina drafting a receiver at any point in the draft than I was previously. So I think edge rusher as well. You still, if you could capitalize on a really good pass rusher at number 8, I think you should not shy away from doing so. They bring back Mike Jackson. They've got J.C. Horn. Another safety, man. I wonder if safety, depending on how Damani Richardson develops, I think safety could also be on this list.
That would be the third one for me.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So we agree there with Carolina in the safety position. Chicago Bears. Signed Drew Dahlman. Signed Grady Jarrett. Signed Dayo Odeyingbo. Signed Durham Smythe, signed Olamide Zaccheaus, traded for Joe Thuney, traded for Jonah Jackson.
Busy.
Dude, you want to talk about teams that have complete rosters now. I mean, Chicago's basically in put up or shut up territory, right? You could say to yourself, hey, well, it's not perfect here. We might be able to get a little bit of an upgrade. But I'm looking at all of these players. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, even Olamide Zaccheaus, and what we saw last year with him with the Commanders.
Right.
Braxton Jones, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Jonah Jackson, Darnell Wright, Cole Kmet, Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift. Even if you want to say like running back, for example, if you want to go like, oh, well, they could upgrade from DeAndre Swift is still good. Like, he's still fine.
Yeah, that's the area, though, to me, that I always look at.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying it's put up or shut up now.
Yeah. I don't love their running back room.
All right, so running back, obviously a need for them. On the defensive side of things, they signed Odeyingbo. They have Austin Booker. They have Montez Sweat. Signed Grady Jarrett, have Andrew Billings, have Gervin Dexter as well. They drafted Zach Pickens as well. Linebackers are still T.J. Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds. They've got Noah Sewell as well. Cornerback room, Tyreek Stevenson.
Secondary's loaded.
Yeah, secondary. Now, I will say, Jaquan Brisker's missed a lot of time with concussions. I'm worried about it. Yeah. They have Jonathan Owens as well, but I think I'd put safety as a sneaky draft pick for this team higher than we think.
In a good class.
Just because Brisker's gone through those concussions.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Like, what if this team added, some depth at that position with a Kevin Winston, R.J. Mickens, Lathan Ransom type of player?
Yeah. Andrew Makuba.
And
right?
Makuba, Billy Bowman, although he's a little smaller.
Yeah, he's more...
they already have the true free safety in Byard.
Right.
Winston and Lathan Ransom came to mind because they're enforcers.
Yep.
So, but you get what I'm speaking.
And then for a third need, what would you say if we had a third need here for this team?
I mean, if I really have to go down that road, I'm fascinated.
Let's say your job's on the line, right? Like, let's say you're employed by a podcast called NFL Stock Exchange, and it's your job to come up with 3 team needs for every single team. And you happen to be sitting here with a random team, let's just say the Chicago Bears, and we already got 2 team needs on there, and you, for your job's sake, job's on the line, had to come up with a third need here for this team. I mean, what would you even say in that scenario?
Well, I guess my job is on the line at the NFL Stock Exchange pod. I think I would take another pass rusher. I wouldn't bet the house on Austin Booker being their third edge. I would take another pass rusher.
I will open this up, and I will just I'm going to put on the list again for if Ryan's going to put things on the screen. I'm just going to say pass rusher because if that happens to be a 3-technique defensive tackle, great. If it happens to be an edge rusher, great. I just think getting a better pass rusher on this team.
Sure.
Because like Grady Jarrett's obviously a name that everybody knows, but there's a reason the Falcons moved on from him. He's beyond his prime. So you can't just sit here and go like, oh, we're getting all pro, Pro Bowl Grady Jarrett. No. Not quite. So I think if a pass rusher can come from like a 3 technique defensive tackle spot, in my opinion, I feel like that could also make sense for them. Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, the extension to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Monster extensions to those guys. Had the franchise tag that was for T. Higgins, but now he's been extended there. Re-signed a lot of their guys. Re-signed B.J. Hill, Mike Gesicki, Joseph Osai, Samaje Perine, Marco Wilson, Cody Ford, Cam Sample, Tanner Hudson. From the outside, they brought in Orion Burks, the linebacker from the Eagles, but that's sort of a one-in, one-out with Akeem Davis-Gaither now no longer there. Signed T.J. Slayton because they're trying to get better along the defensive line. Sam Hubbard retired. And Trey Hendrickson's pissed off. So, what are the needs here? What are the needs here for the Bengals?
Well, we made it pretty obvious. They need another pass rusher.
Yeah.
Because their best one is pissed as hell.
Yep.
Their other one retired. That's not good. They, in my opinion, need an upgrade at safety, and they need a guard. I think they're like the most clear cut. I looked at their roster and I was like, man, I know this one. Bang, bang, bang. 3 big booms. Like I think that those are clear cut, obvious needs for this.
Was that a Costco Boys reference?
You betcha.
You're giving it 3 booms.
The Rizzler is a bona fide superstar.
Dude, I saw one of those, you know how you see like those accounts, they'll make like the random brackets, and it was like internet icons, and like that was the bracket, and it was like
who was the 1 seed? It had to be the Rizzler.
No. It was like all time. It was like all time. So the Chocolate Rain guy from that YouTube video, the iconic video, like that was the 1 seed.
So this this could have like real throwback.
Yes.
Like
yeah.
Daniel
Charlie
could be on here.
Could have been. I don't know if it was
God.
or not because we got in the second round, but like Charlie Bit My Finger was on there.
Oh, this is deep.
But all I'm saying is the Rizzler won the first round matchup. I didn't even see who it was.
As he should. He's he's like an SEC team at this point in the bracket, the Rizzler. He's unbelievable.
Brother. He's coming out swinging.
He's bigger than the Costco guys. He should
branch out.
He should turn heel on the Costco guys.
Wow.
Yeah. He should. It'd be great for his brand.
I actually kind of love it.
Yeah.
All right, so the Bengals drafting the Rizzler.
Right guard, the
Rizzler. So edge rusher, interior offensive line, I agree with you, probably a guard, but anybody who could play that guard center flexibility, I think makes a lot of sense for them. However, they can get better on the interior offensive line. It's very important for this team. And then safety. Yeah, Geno Stone was a little bit disappointing, certainly to start the year. I think he got better in the second half of the season, but curious as to what Bengals fans would want to see their team allocate their resources to, because they're picking within the top 20. They're picking at number 17. They basically just have all of their picks. They don't have a 7th round pick, but 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, it's all of their original picks there. So it's those 6 selections that they have there. Cleveland Browns, they extended Myles Garrett, made him the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL for a week. And then Jamar Chase got over that. They brought in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, 1-year deal from Tampa. Brought in Cornelius Lucas, 2-year deal along the offensive line. Man, their offensive line, dude. I think this team's in trouble with offensive line long term.
Yeah. You don't think Kenny Pickett's going to do well behind this group?
Well, whoever the quarterback is going to be, like whether it's Kenny Pickett, whether they draft Shedeur Sanders at number 2, whether somehow Cam Ward gets in their lap at number 2, I think they re-signed Conklin, right?
Yeah, they redid his deal.
Yeah. Let me see what it is. Jack Conklin contract. Because what did they sign him to? Damn it. Typing is hard. Typing is very difficult. What does he have? So he's 31. They redid his contract, and so he's got 2 years left on this deal. I don't know if this is updated, but he's got like 2 years left on his deal. He's 31 years old. He'll be 32. But I'm pretty sure next offseason, Ethan Posick, Wyatt Teller, and Joel Bitonio are like all free agents for this team.
And we didn't know if Bitonio was going to keep playing at some point this offseason.
Right. And I mean, like, they have some names, at least in the wings. They have Zach Sinter. They have Luke Whippler. They have Javion Cohen. So they're, you know, if you want to bet on those guys, you can. But right now they're scheduled to have DeJuan Jones start at left tackle for 17 games. I'm skeptical, man.
Yeah.
Anyways,
DeJuan Jones is probably skeptical.
What are we doing here? What do the team needs?
Pointing at himself. Me? What do you mean? All right, so the team needs their offensive line any way you can get it.
I would just say offensive line. Yeah. I really would.
I would say offensive line, wide receiver, and I am the leader of the Cedric Tillman fan club. But they could use a third wide receiver.
Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, yeah, they need somebody else there.
I mean, shit, they need a running back in the worst way. They might have the most team needs on offense. You could say anything but tight end.
Damn, I was going to say corner. Yeah, I guess wide receiver's probably a bigger need than corner.
No, they need a corner too. Man. Was Myles Garrett lying when he said it wasn't about the money?
Yeah, brother. 1,000% he was lying. Yes. Yes.
Oh, God.
You pay me $40 million, I'll lie to your face too.
This is a little bit more grim than I originally thought. I'm not going to lie.
Just the offense?
The roster, it can be turned over, but it's going to take some real hits in the draft.
Until they get Deshaun's money and get out from the Deshaun Watson contract. Yeah, I think this is tough. Because I think they do need another wide receiver. They absolutely need a starting running back. And I think even within a year, their offensive line could, if DeJuan Jones struggles, genuinely, they could be replacing 4 of their starting 5 offensive linemen next offseason, with the 5th guy being Jack Conklin, who's going to be on the last year of his deal and 32 years old.
Right.
I'm going offensive line. I'm getting ahead of that need. Wide receiver and then running back. Curious if Browns fans agrees with
It's amazing we didn't say quarterback.
Oh, we didn't say quarterback, did we?
It's an obvious need.
Yeah,
I guess the argument
Ryan, throw quarterback up there. I don't care. We're doing 4.
Yeah,
we're doing
4
4.
needs. The Browns break the dam. On to the Cowboys.
Yeah, we're going on to the Cowboys. Cowboys signed Dante Fowler Jr., Solomon Thomas, Peyton Turner along the defensive line. Weren't huge deals there for them. Signed Miles Sanders, signed Javonte Williams, so they got a new backfield there. Those running backs there. They signed Jack Sanborn from Chicago. They also traded for Kenneth Murray, also traded for Kyer Elam, brought back Osa Odigizua, which I like that for them along the defensive line, especially with them losing DeMarcus Lawrence. Gave a good chunk of money to Kavontae Turpin as well, one of the best special teams players in the league. Signed Robert Jones to play guard for them. Lost Zach Martin because he retired. Cowboys team needs, Connor. What do we got? I feel like the biggest team needs they had, running back, linebacker, they brought in people, but do you think that takes away from what should be draft team needs, or are those positions still there?
Well, let's just start with something. If you were a failed first-round pick, the Cowboys acquired you this offseason.
Yeah, start looking at property in Dallas.
Dante Fowler, Kyer Elam, Kenneth Murray, Solomon Thomas, Peyton Turner. They acquired all of them this offseason.
I would suggest an apartment complex near Terry Black's barbecue.
Oh, not bad. That's
what they should be looking at.
If you were a veteran second-round running back, they acquired you. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders.
That's true.
So they need a running back. They need another offensive lineman, preferably a tackle. And they need a wide receiver. Clear as day.
All right, so you say running back, offensive tackle.
And wide receiver.
Yeah, they definitely need a wide receiver. They traded. What did they trade for Jonathan Mingo?
A 4th rounder.
So they have Jonathan Mingo, they have CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Tolbert, Ryan Florno, who got some playing time last year. They signed Paris Campbell. They have Kavontae Turpin. Yeah, man, they need a wide receiver. Absolutely. Running back and offensive tackle. Yeah, I think it's a lot of offensive needs. Got to make sure the offense is a lot better this upcoming year. Broncos, love what the Broncos did in free agency.
Yep.
Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw makes the speed of that defense even better. And it was defense that was borderline top 5 or even top 5 in a lot of categories. I think they could be potentially the best defense in the NFL this year. They re-signed DJ Jones, which is a good deal for them. 3 years, $39 million. Also brought in Evan Ingram, which I think gives them a lot of flexibility of what they could do at number 20 overall, because it doesn't feel like they have to draft Colson Loveland, which we have given to them basically in every single mock draft we have ever done. So it just frees them up to have a lot of flexibility in the draft. What do you think about the Broncos and some team needs for them?
Yeah, interesting team. They've done a really good job this offseason. I've loved just about everything they've done. They need a running back for sure, like written in ink.
Yep.
For sure.
Yep. Didn't sign Javonte, so they've got Jaleel McLaughlin. They've got Audric Estime. Actually, you're wrong. They have Audric Estime, so they do not need any sort of a running back for the next 15 years as he goes on to break basically every NFL record. So the journey begins here, and so they definitely don't need a running back. But other than that, obviously, what do you think they need here?
Man, it gets kind of tricky, right? Because they brought back DJ Jones as their run stopper.
So the interesting thing about the Broncos and the defensive line, since you bring up Jones, is Zach Allen, John Frank Lemire, and Malcolm Roach, all of them unrestricted free agents in 2026.
And JFM is not happy, as we've talked about.
So I would absolutely put interior defensive line here.
I think so too.
Okay. And then what would you say about, I just think somebody to be receiver 2 for them.
Right. Not all these stretch threes.
Right.
Like Mims, Troy Franklin, even Devon Vele. How about maybe a legitimate number 2?
And that could be a tight end or a wide receiver, right?
Sure. Although Evan Ingram will probably be using that way in the very short term.
Well, what I'm saying is, if they love Colson Loveland still and they wanted to draft him at 20, I still don't have a problem with that.
No, not at all.
Just somebody who is wide receiver 2 on this team. That's what I think the Broncos need now at this point. Yeah. So running back, interior defensive line to get ahead of the free agent frenzy that could be next year along the interior defensive line, and then wide receiver 2, whatever that looks like. Those are the top 3 needs that we have here for the Denver Broncos. Detroit Lions, they signed DJ Reed from your New York Jets. Roy Lopez
from our NFL Stock Exchange pod.
Legend. So we love that signing. Re-signed Derek Barnes, re-signed Levi Onwuzurike and Marcus Davenport. So they brought back a lot of guys in the front 7. Brought back Tim Patrick as well. Love that move. Brought back Dan Skipper on a 1-year deal. Craig Reynolds on a 1-year deal. They released Darius Smith, released Jalen Reeves-Maben. So a lot of the core of the team is the same. A lot of the coaching staff is really the turnover that we had here for Detroit. Do you still think that edge rusher is the top need for this team opposite Aiden Hutchinson?
It's up there. It's definitely one of the needs. I would think that interior, or not even interior, maybe just offensive line depth in general, kind of get ahead on the future.
Yeah, because Kevin Zeitler now no longer on the team. However, they should feel good about Christian Mahogany stepping in to that full-time role. But Frank Ragnow has been really injured throughout his career.
Taylor
Graham
Decker.
Glasnow is not getting any younger.
Yeah, Taylor Decker is not a spring chicken.
How old is Taylor Decker? That's good.
He turns 32 before camp ends.
Really?
Yeah, how about that?
Okay. All right.
He's missed a couple games over the last couple of years. Nothing crazy, but...
So offensive line? Maybe just offensive line youth?
Yeah, it's nice to be the Detroit Lions. Like, this team is awesome. Like, I'm not sitting here and going, oh my God, like the Browns, where they need starters. They need to just start preparing for when things turn over, like the great organizations like the Baltimore Ravens do.
Yeah, so all right, edge, wide receiver. They're good. They're good at corner, man. I mean, they've got Terrion Arnold. They have DJ Reed. They've got Amik Robertson. They have Ennis Rakestraw Jr. Maybe I think the next question just comes down to, where do you want more depth?
Right.
Do you want more depth at corner? Or do they want to try to go after their potential wide receiver 3 of the future?
That's kind of what I was wondering too, right?
Because Tim Patrick's a 1-year, $4 million deal. He's not breaking the bank for you, and he hits unrestricted free agency next year. Wide receiver or corner? What do you think? Which one's do you think wide receiver's more of a need?
I'd probably actually go corner.
Okay. All right. We'll go corner, but
Yeah.
we had that conversation there. Very curious if Lions fans agree with us or disagree with us. Which one you think is the bigger need there for them? Green Bay Packers. Very interesting free agency period. I don't really know how the Green Bay Packers got much better. Gonna be honest.
They spent a lot of money.
Signed Aaron Banks, but to an offensive line that I thought was fine. I like Aaron Banks. I don't know how much of an upgrade he is versus what they had last year.
Yeah, like is a good use of that word. I don't love Aaron Banks.
I mean, again, like I like him. I think he's a solid player, but I for 4 years, $77 million, and I just feel as though the Packers are good along the offensive line. Let me look at because I think their projected starting five is going to be, you've got Elgton Jenkins at center, Zach Tom and Rasheed Walker are playing the offensive tackle spots.
Josh Myers out the door, who I know struggled for them last year.
Right. You still have Sean Ryan, but then, I mean, is Jordan Morgan going to play guard?
That'd be a bad investment if he doesn't play.
No, he's got to play.
He's got to play.
Is he playing right guard then? Because Aaron Banks played left guard. So
I don't think they like him at tackle.
Morgan, you're saying? Yeah, I don't think you.
And obviously, you signed Aaron Banks.
Packers fans, let us know. I think the starting five is going to be Rasheed Walker, Aaron Banks, Elgton Jenkins, Jordan Morgan at right guard, and then Zach Tom at right tackle.
I would agree.
That's what I think the starting five is going to be. But again, I don't think you're like, that's not like, whoa, what an upgrade. O-line's way better than it was the previous year. Anyways, they signed Nate Hobbs as well, 4-year, $48 million deal, but I believe only $16 million is guaranteed. So a lot of that is sort of prove-it stuff for him. They signed Mecole Hardman too. I think his team needs a wide receiver one. Josh Jacobs said it himself. They need a wide receiver one. They still need a corner badly.
Need a corner. Jair Alexander, just who the hell knows, like what he's gonna do this year.
I don't know if he's gonna be on this team by week 1.
Yeah, the Nate Hobbs acquisition doesn't change that they still need a corner.
And they still need a one-on-one pass rush winner on the outside.
Yeah, they do.
So for the Packers, I'm gonna say wide receiver one. I'm going to say edge rusher and then corner. Those are the three needs. And I think the Packers got to hit them hard in order to make sure that they're still competing at the highest level in that division. Houston Texans. Oh boy. Laundry list of moves for this team that happened in free agency week. So here's all the signings that they have. Sheldon Rankins, Darrell Taylor, Laken Tomlinson, which that Laken Tomlinson deal, now very important. Ronald Darby, Braxton Berrios, Casey Toohill, Justin Watson. They traded for Christian Kirk. They traded for Ed Ingram, which also now very important.
Anytime you have the chance,
unfortunately,
to add Laken Tomlinson and Ed Ingram to a terrible offensive line, you have to do it. You just have to do it.
Look, man, I don't know, Jim. I fear.
Yeah. For CJ Stroud's life?
What could happen now with CJ Stroud? Because the interior offensive line in Houston was already cheeks last season. And then you traded away your best pass protector, no question about it, in Laramie Tunsil. Now, again, we've said this on this show before, after the fact, because we reacted to it, like, the reports were that they didn't love the attitude and the leadership that was in the offensive line room.
Yep.
They felt like they lacked the dog, if you will. And as the veteran, Laramie Tunsil was the leader of that. And so clearly they didn't really like how he was leading that offensive tackle room. So they move on from him. And then they trade Kenyon Green. I can understand wanting to do that.
Yeah, me too.
But now you have, I mean, what's their starting five?
They signed Cam Robinson like literally when we started taping this show, I believe.
Okay, so they brought in Cam Robinson, so I like this.
Yes.
Okay, this makes it a little bit better. This absolutely does make it better in my opinion. But the starting five is going to be, well, I can live with this going into the draft though, because now that Cam Robinson is here, Cam Robinson can play left tackle for you. He's at least fine. He's bounced around the league the last year, but that's okay. I think he's fine. You can now kick Titus Howard probably into one of the guard spots, so you feel better about that because I think he's just a better offensive lineman than the options that they had there. You have Jarrett Patterson, you have Juice Scruggs, you have Laken Tomlinson, you have Ed Ingram. 2 of those 4 are going to duke it out for whoever's going to start along those 2 spots at center and right guard.
Yep.
And then you got Blake Fisher, who I actually like Blake Fisher. I liked him when he was coming out of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And I think he could be a fine offensive tackle in the NFL. So because they were able to come to a deal with Cam Robinson, I think that now you can at least say to yourself, just get me another interior offensive lineman.
Get maybe two offensive linemen in the draft that can compete.
Yes.
I'm with you. I would still take a tackle.
You would?
Yeah, I would take a tackle and kind of let them all compete in camp. Cam's on a 1-year deal. I'm not tied to him having to start, but if he starts and plays well, then great. It's more about this group staying healthy and the addition making a big impact. You just don't want Lakin and Ingram to play, and they're not slated to right now. But like you said, Trevor, you need the draft to really help out this unit.
Okay,
and wide receiver, obviously.
Okay, so you'd have wide receiver as a third need there. They brought in a lot of guys, but I would also have wide receiver there for the Houston Texans. Okay. Colts signed Cam Bynum, signed Javarius Ward, signed Daniel Jones, signed Neville Gallimore, signed Corey Ballantyne as well. I like all of those moves for the Indianapolis Colts. I really do. Signed Khalil Herbert too. Want to shout him out there. Released Raekwon Davis. Don't have EJ Speed anymore at the linebacker level. They don't have Will Fries. They don't have Ryan Kelly. They're putting Tanner Bortolini in one of those spots who was able to play a little bit last year. They've got Dalton Tucker as well, who I think could step in and probably play one of those spots. Matt Goncalves, maybe he can play one of those guard spots too, if he's able to do that, although he is more of an offensive tackle, I think. Team needs here for Indianapolis. Just your thoughts overall on them and where you think they could attack the draft.
Tight end, for sure, as we've talked about. I think I would add a guard in this draft. I like the guards in this draft. Maybe you land on a starter. And then I think it's pretty up in the air, right? I mean, you spend a lot of money on the defense. You probably want a little bit more out of your pass rush, but don't you kind of expect that to happen naturally with year 2 of Latu?
Hopefully.
So I feel very confident in the tight end and guard picks. And I guess just by default, I would say maybe add one more pass rusher.
Pass rusher. Yeah. I wonder safety as well. Sort of what do they think? Where do they think Cam Bynum's going to play? Do you think he's going to be more of a... Because it's Lou Anarumo's defense, and so they can do a lot of too high stuff anyways.
Right.
So
maybe that is a second safety addition with Cam.
Yeah, do they think Nick Cross can play that well enough? Would they rather draft somebody? Safety or pass rusher? I mean, pass rusher, they've got Pay. They have Samson Ebukam. They have Tyquan Lewis. Obviously, Latu, like you mentioned. Isaiah Land as well.
I forgot Isaiah Land is there.
Yeah, they still got Isaiah Land. I think I'd stay safety still.
Yeah, I think looking deeper in the roster, I think that's fair.
I think I would say safety there for the Indianapolis Colts. So there's our 3 needs for them. Tight end, guard, and then a safety. Jacksonville Jaguars, they signed Patrick McCarry from the Baltimore Ravens. Play one of those guard spots because Mitch Morse and Brandon Scherf no longer on the team. Ezra Cleveland's the only returning interior offensive lineman. They signed Jordan Lewis, which I think Jordan Lewis is fine. I wonder where the fit is here because he's more of a slot defender, nickel defender type of a secondary player. And that's what Jarian Jones did really well last year for you.
That's interesting.
And Jarian did not grade well when he played as an outside corner at Florida State the first 2 years that he was somewhat of a starter for them.
Yeah, he doesn't have the size for that, I don't think.
Yeah, and it's not his style of game. So I don't really know how they're going to deploy him. Maybe they're playing one of those guys at safety. I don't know. But they signed him, Diami Brown. They signed Eric Murray at safety because they lost Andre Sisco. Robert Hainsey, Chuma Edoga as well, Nick Mullins, Hunter Long, Fred Johnson, the offensive tackle. They traded away Christian Kirk. They released Evan Ingram, released Ronald Darby and Devin Duvernay as well. What do we think? What do we think with the Jags and sort of where their team's needs are? They're picking number 5 overall and feels like kind of a best player available kind of situation for them every time we do a mock. But what about some specific team needs here for them?
Right. They've made a lot of moves volume-wise, and I think they've been really solid moves, honestly. Like, Diami Brown's a good ad. I think when you look at Patrick McCarry, he could play both tackle and guard for you, and he's slated in at guard for them. I don't love this running back room, honestly. And I know Tank had some moments last year, and ETN had a rough year. I don't know if it's not need number one, but I would add somebody a little bit more dynamic to this backfield, honestly. That's my big takeaway for the future. And then looking up front, interior defensive line, and that could be Mason Graham in the first round, honestly, when all is said and done. That wouldn't shock me at all. And then you brought up the most important point. How are they deploying their corners? Because if they're playing Jordan Lewis at nickel, then you need an outside corner. Like, it's as simple as that. You need an outside corner. But if you think Jordan Lewis can play on the outside for you and you're going to keep Jerry Jones in the slot, maybe they know more than us and that plan will work. I don't. And you brought up safety, which is important. Safety is a pretty big need, in my opinion, on this team. So it's kind of like secondary interior defensive line, and the third need would be I just want a more dynamic third down back.
Did you mention wide receiver? Did I hear wide receiver?
I didn't, because I think BTJ is a true alpha number one. I
agree.
I like Parker Washington in the slot. I know I don't have to convince you of that.
No, you don't.
And then, like, you're telling me Diami Brown and Gabe Davis to, like, combined can't give you enough there? I know it's not pretty, but, like, there's other pressing needs on this team. And I think Brenton Strange is a good pass-catching tight end, so he's factoring into that group. Mm-hmm. It's never going to be perfect in every spot. I think they're way more glaring, in my opinion, on different areas of the defense than their depth wide receiver.
Yeah, I wonder, because they made the signing, right, for Jordan Lewis. So this new regime knows where they're going to play him.
It'd be cool if they didn't. We just like the guy. Let's see what let's see what happens here.
You know what's funny is that that happens. So
the Jets do it every year. They drafted Malachi Corley because they thought his highlight tape was sick. No idea what to do with him, so they just made him inactive every week.
I just can't.
The Yak King.
I just can't.
The inactive king.
Yeah. Yards at the cooler. Because he's
literally
not on the field. Okay. He's yakking at the cooler.
Oh, no.
He's yapping at the cooler.
Yapping at the cooler in sweats.
I could get down with safety.
You were disgusted that I left wide receiver out.
No.
I saw it in your face.
It's an interesting. All right, calm down over there. It's an interesting. The Jags are very interesting because I would say that wide receiver, running back, safety are all three categories where I go, yeah. I mean, you'd like to upgrade here. You'd like to get some. I don't know how they're going to prioritize it.
Oh, I don't think they're going to prioritize it like me. I think they're comfortable with their running back room.
So okay, so you wouldn't put so you were saying team needs for running back, but you don't think they're going to, because I think I agree with you. I'm not blown away by either of those guys.
I don't like either of those guys that much,
but I don't think they're gonna address it.
Like, I would love to see Bashaw Tootin or your boy RJ Harvey on this roster.
Sure,
that's the kind of running back I'm talking
Tootin
about.
would be fun as hell.
Outside zone demon, fun in space.
I don't know if they have the O-line for that. I don't know if they have the facilities for that, but
facilities is an excellent word.
I actually think they probably need more of like a man gap scheme running back.
But also just a pass catcher in space that can make people miss. Man, I know people are sitting there like, boy, what happened to Travis Etienne? But
I don't know. That's the you
can find
us.
the answer. You tell me. I don't know.
You tell us. All right, I'm gonna go safety because Darnell Savage has been bad.
Yeah, he can't be starting for you.
Well, he is.
That's the thing. He is actually slated to. Fun fact.
So interior defensive line, safety, and then
probably wide receiver.
That's what I have.
If you're the Jaguars, yeah.
That's what I have.
Cool, I hate
wide
it.
Receiver.
No, I'm just kidding.
I bet you do. I don't give a shit. It's on the sheet. Kansas City Chiefs.
Are you updating the simulator right now?
No.
Okay.
No. I'm not. I'm not fully updating the simulator. What
That'd
I'm
be
doing
amazing.
is I'm trying to be a good content creator for our great producer Ryan, and I'm writing these down beforehand so I can give them to him beforehand.
So he's not producing the show for 45 hours.
Yeah, because we're morons and don't take notes while we're actually doing the show.
We are the worst people to work for, and we're nice.
I don't know about the worst.
We're nice people, but man, we have no organization skills.
I do feel bad, Ryan. I feel bad for you. I'm sorry.
He deserves better.
He does. So does Patrick Mahomes. Now that we're on with the Kansas City Chiefs, trading away Joe Thuney. Don't have anything at offensive tackle. They signed Jalen Moore at offensive tackle, so I guess he's starting at one of those offensive tackle spots. 2 years, $30 million. So he's starting for him somewhere. They signed Christian Fulton as well, Elijah Mitchell. I actually really like the Elijah Mitchell signing for their running back room because it felt like he was depleted and very one-dimensional last year, so I actually do like that. Gardner Minshew they signed, Jerry Tillery they signed, Robert Tonyan as well. They re-signed Nick Bolton, which is huge, brought back Marquise Brown, brought back Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, re-signed Bailey Zappi, of course, Najee Johnson. They franchise tagged Trey Smith, so he's not going anywhere, but I already mentioned that they traded Joe Thuney. So, offensive tackle still the need for the Chiefs, or do you think that the Jalen Moore signing keeps them from doing it?
I'd still take one.
Yeah.
Like, you're picking at the end of round one. Maybe that helps them be a little bit more patient with the Joshua Simmons. When you think about
I would think
like
so.
coming off
if Kansas City has the opportunity to pick Josh Simmons, they don't.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Malpractice.
Because he's coming off the serious knee injury, but you can be patient with him if you're Kansas City.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right, Trevor. He might not be there. That's fair. I can't remember. I actually think he's not going to be in my mock.
He's going to be there. He's not going to be. Oh, wait, what are you saying there?
In the mock that I've been writing, I can't remember. But like when you actually do the exercise.
I was like, wait, he's not going to be where? He's not going to be where? In the league?
Draft.
At his pro day? At the draft?
He passed on football.
Wow.
Not for me, dog.
It's actually a power move. I respect it.
Tackle.
Maybe it's always been his dream to be in the supplemental draft, so he's like, all right, I'm out. And then he'll like unretire next year, and he'll have to go through the supplemental draft.
I miss when the supplemental draft was exciting. There'd be like one prospect that can go in the 6th round, and everybody would be posting clips online. Well, because we're just thirsty at that time of year.
Wasn't it? Wasn't Josh Gordon in the
Josh
supplemental
Gordon
draft?
Was the most electric supplemental draft pick.
All right,
of
hold
all
on.
time.
Now, all right. Tangent.
Supplemental draft picks.
Supplemental draft history. Come on.
We gotta have some 46 players.
Wait, Bernie Kosar was a.
That's insane.
What?
I think
Bernie Kosar was a first-round supplemental pick? I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know Chris Carter was either.
Oh, so the supplemental draft used to be like way bigger.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Bernie Kosar NFL draft controversy. He was
there had to be something here. Yeah.
Highly sought NFL prospect described as having an elite football IQ. Blah 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 blah.
Chose blue cheese over ranch, so he went undraftable because of how controversial that opinion was of him.
So he announced he was foregoing his final 2 years of college football in a press conference to enter the NFL. He grew up a Browns fan, and he announced at the press conference he'd like to play for the Browns. The NFL at the time said only seniors and college grads could enter the 1985 NFL draft, and Kosar was still a underclassman at Miami in 1985. So he announced that he had arranged an expedited academic plan. This sounds way too like Wolf of Wall Street, Aerotime International for me. But he announced the expedited academic plan with 18 credits in the spring. 18 credits in the spring in 1985 and an additional 6 credits in the summer that would permit him to graduate from the U in time to meet the draft's eligibility requirements. In June, the University of Miami notified the NFL that Kosar had met the course requirements to graduate. Seeking to obtain Kosar in the NFL draft, the Vikings on April 9th in 1985 traded with the Oilers to obtain a top draft selection and announced that they were intending to take him. The Browns had quietly traded their first-round selections for 1985 and 1986, their third-round pick and their 6th selection in 1986 with the Bills for the Bills' first pick in the 1985 supplemental draft, which paved the way for the Browns to select him, if he entered it. And then there's a lot after that of how it all went down. But the Browns and Kosar...
Why didn't Arch Manning do this?
The Browns and Kosar masterminded this. Like
Arch Manning should have.
For the old heads listening to this and they can't believe that we didn't know this, I apologize. Trevor and I were not alive when this all happened, but amazing draft story.
Weren't even a thought.
I wasn't even a thought.
Yeah. Could have been.
Oh.
My dad was pounding Miller Lite pitchers on Wednesday nights.
Yeah. I have a picture of my dad.
Was not concerned about being a father at that point.
Same. I have a picture of my dad around this time frame down the shore, at a bar around a table with a ton of empty Budweisers wearing a shirt that says, "Avoid hangovers, stay drunk." I use it as my profile picture in all my fantasy teams. And you think I'm supposed to know about Bernie Kosar eluding certain teams for the draft?
That is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
I only got to hang out with your dad for like 30 seconds at your wedding, but
He had a great time. He said he loved talking
phenomenal
to you.
individual.
Yeah.
Phenomenal individual.
Man, Bernie Kosar, star of today's show.
Some other supplemental draft legends. Josh Gordon, the aforementioned. Terrell Pryor.
Oh, yes.
T. Peasy himself.
Yeah.
Third round of the supplemental draft of the Raiders. My favorite Madden quarterback of all time.
Oh, my God.
Because it was
Unstoppable.
the greatest cheat code.
Unstoppable.
He was Mike Vick reincarnated.
Yeah, but bigger. What if we took Mike Vick's Madden build and made him larger?
That was Terrell Pryor. Man.
Good
Sam
God.
Beal. Dude, you remember when everybody was talking about Sam Beal, the corner from Western Michigan?
How could I forget?
Dude.
The Giants loved him.
They took him in the third round of the supplemental
Third
draft.
round for Sam Beal. Sam Beal lasted in the NFL for like 2 years.
Yeah, what is... So we played until 2021, so 3 years. Yeah, man. He played 2 years for them. Shoulder injury kept him out his entire rookie season.
Yeah, shoulder injury was a big problem.
Then he had a hamstring injury at the beginning of the 2019 season, so he was on IR again for that. And he opted out of the 2020 season because of COVID. And then he basically just got waived, practice squad waived, then he was done.
Yeah.
Damn.
Bring back the supplemental draft.
Yeah, make the supplemental draft great again.
We'll do a live show for it.
Dude, I will 100%
I'm
do a live
absolutely
show.
that sick.
You know what's funny isn't the supplemental draft is all over email. If I understand
Yeah, I
the
think you're
process
right.
correctly.
There's
Where
no like event.
the NFL just like emails all the teams and they go, okay, the supplemental draft is open. And then they like give it like 5 minutes or something to like see. We need to have somebody on the show to actually walk us through the supplemental draft because like Schefter will have the tweet and they'll be like, all right, the supplemental draft is open. And then 5 minutes later, and Schefter will be like, and that concludes the 2023 supplemental draft. It's like, wait, what happened? We didn't even get a commercial break.
Imagine you're watching TV and the lower just says the person's name and under the name it says supplemental draft historian.
Dude, I would do the crap out of a supplemental draft live show.
Yeah, I would.
100%.
Please, NFL. So back to the Chiefs' needs.
Oh, yeah. We didn't finish the Chiefs. I was about to read an
No.
ad, but we didn't finish
Tackle
the
was
Chiefs.
on there.
Yeah, offensive tackle's on there.
D-line?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I don't think they're
Definitely now.
signing Jerry Tillery and thinking all their problems are solved.
I mean, are we just doing interior defensive line and edge rusher?
Yeah, nice year for George Karlaftis, but you obviously need more. They have Felix Anudike-Uzomah.
Yeah, but I feel like if he was going to break out to be the player that they need him to be, he would have already done so. I think he's fine.
Right.
I think that they could use a difference-making edge rusher, man. I really
Okay.
do.
Yeah, let's ride.
So I would say offensive tackle, interior defensive lineman, and edge rusher. Those are my 3 needs for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
All right, before we go on to the next team, all the parents out there, talking to Connor's dad, wearing the phenomenal shirt, hammering Bud Lights. What your child's future success looks like for you. Maybe it's a job that they're very passionate about. Maybe it's them just traveling the world, living a very comfortable lifestyle. Whatever that is, you can help them achieve that as a parent with a kids investment account for Fabric by Gerber Life. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With the kids investment account for Fabric, you guys can start investing in your child's future today. Kids cannot invest while they are minors, but this kids investment account allows you to invest on their behalf. Gives their investments so much more time to grow. The whole thing is online, very easy to set up. Starts you just $20. There's multiple tax advantages to it. No commission fees on it, just a low flat monthly maintenance fee. Can be used for basically anything. When they're kids, it's music classes, it's sporting events, it's tutors, it's tuition, it's things like that. And then when they're older, maybe you're helping them buy that first car, buy that first house, whatever it is. The funds can be used for, like I said, basically anything. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child's future today at meetfabric.com/stock-exchange. It's meetfabric.com/stock-exchange, MEET fabric.com/stock-exchange. Portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clearing Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. Las Vegas Raiders. They signed Jeremy Chin. They lost Trayvon Merrick. They signed Elena Roberts at linebacker. They did lose Robert Spillane, so there's a couple of one in, one out there. They signed Alex Kappa, who got cut by the Cincinnati Bengals, so they're hoping to rebound there year for him. But honestly, the Bengals need a good interior offensive lineman, so cutting Alex Kappa for them sort of shows you what a poor year that he had. So hopefully, new spot, gets to play a little bit better. They're taking a chance on Eric Stokes at cornerback, losing Nate Hobbs, and they needed help at corner even before Nate Hobbs was gone. So they're trying to take a chance on him. Brought in Raheem Mostert as well. Traded for Geno Smith. That was the big move that they made there. They re-signed Malcolm Kuntz. They lost Divine Diablo. He signed with the Atlanta Falcons, but extending Isaiah Polamalu at safety, extending Max Crosby. What do we think about the Las Vegas Raiders? Some team needs that we have for them as a team picking number 6 overall.
I said this when we did the fixing the Raiders. I like this roster a lot more than it's given credit for. They need coaching, which they have now. Pete Carroll, no denying what he could do. And They needed a quarterback, and Geno Smith's a good player. So now it's kind of, one, they did lose some free agents. Like Trayvon Merrick is a good player. They brought in Jeremy Chin, as you said, Trevor. You lose Spillane. I think corner jumps out.
Huge.
Like it's a glaring bleeding spot.
Yes.
To me.
Yes.
Corner with a bullet, running back with a bullet.
Yep.
And
I don't know what with a bullet means, but I couldn't agree more wholeheartedly.
Just like in ink.
Okay.
And
right. I still don't understand the bullet analogy. I don't really know how we're getting there, but again, I'm your friend. I'm here to support you.
Let me cook. Here's the toughest one. Obviously, they need another wide receiver. Do we prioritize that over their open competition maybe at right tackle? Like, do they like DJ Glaze a lot?
I think they do.
I guess they do.
Somebody was telling me that Pete Carroll actually spoke very highly of DJ Glaze.
So then it's wide receiver.
So I would say that it's wide receiver. I think that this one's pretty simple. I think that they could honestly go any of these 3 positions, corner, running back, or wide receiver, at number 6 overall. I think they could go Ted McMillan.
Yeah.
I think they could go Ashton Genty. I think they could go, certainly Travis Hunter if he makes it there. I don't know if he's going to make it there.
It just feels a little early for the next tier of corners.
I agree. If they still have faith in Will Johnson, they could take him there. But with him even suffering another injury throughout the draft process, it's sort of hard to see that being the case. But wide receiver, running back, corner. I think the big.
That's an easy one.
Very easy one. Chargers. Thankfully, they signed Mekhi Becton because I was wondering if the phone lines were down with the Chargers calling these guys.
Yeah, it wasn't a ton going on.
What'd you say?
There wasn't a ton going on.
Well, I mean, they had a ton that was going on, but they had a lot of money to spend, and they didn't make a lot of splashes, right? I mean, they signed Mekhi Becton, but other than Becton, they signed Dante Jackson, but you lost Christian Fulton. You signed Najee Harris, but it's Najee Harris to a 1-year deal. Is that really a big difference maker for you? And the running back market wasn't huge, so I'm not trying to say they should. They bring back Mike Williams as their big addition in the receiver room, but they're just bringing back Mike Williams, and it's ironic because you probably let him go because you thought he was a little bit over the hill, and you were kind of proven right, and now you bring him back, and you're supposed to be like, wow, no, they got Mike Williams. They're all good to go. I don't know about that. Not that he's a bad player, but it's not like the splash signing that you probably wanted to make.
He didn't have his legs last year, so that's see what you get.
Right.
Like both with the Jets and the Steelers, he couldn't move the way he used to.
And that's a problem, right? So I'm just again, I'm not trying to tear down the Mike Williams signing like it's nothing, but it's not what you needed to make when it comes to a splash at the wide receiver spot or an upgrade. Deshaun Hand, Naquan Jones, Benjamin St-Juste, Andre James. They re-signed Khalil Mack, and for 1 year, $18 million, I feel like Khalil Mack could have gotten more on the open market, so that's huge for them to not only bring back Khalil Mack, but at a great price. Brought back Troy Dye, brought back Denzel Perryman, brought back Jalen Reagor as well. They extended Elijah Molden. They extended Bradley Bozeman, who it felt like it was sort of up in the air whether or not they were going to bring him back or not. They released Gus Edwards. They released Joey Bosa, which I think was the big move for them. post free agency, what are the Chargers' biggest needs here heading into the NFL draft?
I mean, I think they need another pass rusher, right? It's
so
Khalil Mack is getting to the end here.
Yep.
And it's great that he's back, but he's 34 years old. Let's start thinking about what our pass rush in that spot is looking like and get a little juice, right?
Oh, they also lost Poona Ford.
Oh, man, Big Poona, who is such an anchor for their run defense. Now, the good news is, like, Tuli Tuipulotu, I thought looked really good last year.
Yep.
So it's not like it's a barren wasteland at edge. I'm just trying to get ahead. I would think you brought this up. Interior defensive line and pass rush are two right off the top.
Yep.
Man.
Running back or wide receiver? Which one would you have here?
Why it would be running back, because I think Ladd is legitimately somebody you could run the pass game through. I know it's a roller coaster with QJ, but he was better last year than we expected, which is a step in the right direction.
Sometimes, but at least
that's why
it was
I said
sometimes.
Roller coaster. It's also he's never gonna live up to where he was taken. You just have to accept that.
Roller coaster. You're like, hey, you gonna enjoy it or you gonna puke? Which one? You don't know.
Or you get stuck at the top for 9 hours and you piss your pants. I don't know. Oh man.
Welcome to the QJ experience.
They just like Harbaugh just loves though the not pretty running back. This room of Najee Harris and Hassan Haskins.
And Kamani Vidal.
Who's got a little juice. Can you give me a Travion Henderson?
That would be nice.
Can you give me someone like that that's explosive?
I will say this, though. They are very on brand because with them signing Mekhi Becton, this O-line is now Rashawn Slater, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton, Joe Wall. These are ass kickers between the tackles. They are going to duo block the shit out of you for 60 minutes.
It's awesome. This is everything I would pray for my football team to be.
Like, I wonder if like a Damian Martinez would be on the board for this team, just somebody who will run behind his pads. I think Quinshon Judkins would be in consideration for this team, just somebody who just has so much speed to power conversion when they get some momentum going, be able to run between the tackles.
Right.
You know what? I'm going to write down 4 needs. I'm going to write edge, interior, defensive line, running back, and wide receiver because I think they are all valid here for the Chargers. So I'm going to go with 4.
Okay.
The Rams, Devontae Adams, Poona Ford. So this is where Poona Ford went. Oh, not far. Low movie cost. They listened to the pod.
Yes. Phenomenal work.
They restructured Matthew Stafford, got Matthew Stafford to say, which I think was huge. They traded Jonah Jackson. They moved on from Cooper Kupp. They brought back Alaric Jackson, which I think was huge for them at offensive tackle. They really need that. So it's a 1 in, 1 out with Cooper Kupp out and Devontae Adams in. They lost Bobby Brown III. He went to the Carolina Panthers, but you put Poona Ford there in the middle. So you absolutely love your interior defensive line still, I think, especially when you put Kobe Turner in that mix there with those guys. They brought back Coleman Shelton for a little bit of interior offensive line depth. He wasn't good when he was with Chicago, but he was decent when he was with the Rams. So he gets back to Los Angeles in that system where he played pretty well. Thoughts on Los Angeles? I think their needs start with the cornerback position. I think we have to talk about that as their biggest need. Do you agree?
I agree. This was quietly, though, one of my favorite off seasons, by the way.
I thought they did a great job.
Like,
I love what the Rams
It just
doing.
didn't work with Jonah Jackson. They got him out of there. I think Devontae's got a lot left in the tank and is a massive upgrade over Cooper Kupp at this point. Poona Ford is the perfect fit for the defensive line that just needs a fatty to eat up a ton of space while all those other demons just let loose.
Yeah.
I love what they did. And I agree with you, Trevor. I think it starts where you look at corner. Let's get a corner in here. I think linebackers a little up and down right
Me
now.
too, man.
I don't love their linebacker room.
Nope.
So those are 2 easy ones for me.
Yep.
What do you think after that? I don't think it's that easy after that.
I'm going to be honest with you. I would still say offensive tackle, even with re-signing Alaric Jackson. Because
get a developmental guy in there behind him in Havenstein.
Yeah, because Havenstein is, what is he, 32
That's
now?
crazy.
So he's 32 now, and you've got Kevin Dotson, you have Bo Limmer, you have Coleman Shelton, you have Steve Avila, KT Levinson's behind them. So I like that interior offensive line depth. But they don't really have anybody waiting in the wings at offensive tackle. So I would tell you offensive tackle's next. So cornerback, linebacker, offensive tackle, and then, just going back to linebacker, they signed Nate Landman. They have Omar Speights, who really played well for them as an undrafted free agent, really played above my expectations from him coming from LSU. I didn't think that he had that in him to really be able to play that well as a rookie, or even overall, just as a starting linebacker at the NFL level. And shout out to him for gaining that starting spot and giving them some extra speed there at the second level. But to me, they need to really look, if they can get a very solid Mike linebacker type of a player and let Omar kind of roam and get the most out of his speed, I think that's a good move for them. So, corner, linebacker, offensive tackle there for the Los Angeles Rams, whose offseason that we like. Miami Dolphins. They signed James Daniels, which I liked because it felt like they did not make an effort to improve the offensive line last offseason. It really hurt them. James Daniels started off the season very well for the Pittsburgh Steelers before getting hurt, so I like that risk, like that bet, I should say, that they're taking there. Brought in Zach Wilson, Jets legend. Brought in Terrell Dodson at the linebacker level. KJ Britt as well. They lost Anthony Walker, but they replaced him with those two linebackers there. Safety Fatu Melifonwu signed a 1-year deal. Wide receiver Nick Westbrook-Akine with a nice 2-year deal, which I really love. I love the Westbrook-Akine addition because he is different than what they have. It felt like it's important to know your identity and your strengths as a team, but when you become really one-dimensional, that's where I felt like the Dolphins were the bad part of that experiment. When you just become so speed dimensional on your team, and NFL defense coordinators sort of know what they need to do to either keep the top off of on your offense, or try to disrupt you a little bit early on in the play, whatever it was. Nick Westbrook-Akine is a totally different wide receiver from what they had before, and I think he's a good one at that from what we saw last year with him in Tennessee. So I like that move for him. They moved on from Raheem Mostert, so they don't have him anymore, but they re-signed Jackson Carman, Liam Eichenberg, D. Eskridge, so some of those guys that were sort of rotational and bottom of the depth chart type of players. Miami is team needs. What do you have here for them?
Safety in ink.
Oh, losing Javon Holland. Yep.
Yeah, and I don't think the guys they signed are starters. I think they're ideal third safeties. So, safety without a doubt. Interior defensive line next to...
Oh, yep, because they don't have Calais Campbell anymore. Yep.
Right, next to Zach Sealer. So, get him some help.
Yep.
And then I would still be drafting offensive linemen if I was this team. Like Teron Armstead, and I know they have Patrick Paul there, but I would take a tackle that can compete as a backup tackle and maybe play guard. I think they are very cut and dried on their needs.
Yep, I would agree.
Although quietly, I would like to have a better backup for Tua Tagovailoa, who is always one hit away from not playing, than Zach Wilson. But
is that Zach Wilson slander?
You bet your ass.
That's crazy. That's crazy, dude.
In these parts?
Yeah. I don't think they're. I mean, we've jokingly talked about Dylan Gabriel being able to step in as lefty, if he was the backup quarterback there for Miami. So maybe they go after a guy like that. Not sure they do though. Not sure they do at that point. I agree with you though. I think those needs are the ones that are the most streamlined for them: safety, interior defensive line, and just offensive line in general. Whoever the best offensive linemen are for you. I would be taking them. Minnesota Vikings. Love what the Vikings did this offseason. I think they did a great job mitigating a lot of their weaknesses and making it in theory, easy transition for a new quarterback to come in there. So obviously they don't have Sam Darnold anymore. J.J. McCarthy's going to come in for next year. But they signed Will Fries. They signed Ryan Kelly to play guard and center for them along their offensive line. Interior offensive line was an issue for them. Ed Ingram and Garrett Bradbury really struggled, and then both of them are not only are they no longer starting, they're not on the team. They released Garrett Bradbury. They traded Ed Ingram. So I like the one-in, one-out there that they were able to upgrade in free agency. Interior defensive line, I think, was an issue for them as well. They signed Javon Hargrave. They signed John Allen, so I like those two moves. At corner, I feel like they had needs at corner. They signed Jeff Okudah. They signed Isaiah Rodgers. They re-signed Byron Murphy. They brought back Harrison Smith. They brought back Aaron Jones as well. Signed Tevere Thomas, so I like him. I thought that he was better in Houston than he was in Tampa the previous season. So, dude, this is the Vikings, genuinely, one of my favorite free agency periods. I think they did a excellent job mitigating their draft needs to basically go about the draft however they want, which is really important for a team that is really only has 4 picks right now in the draft. They pick at 24, they don't pick again until 97, and then it's 5th round pick and a 6th round pick. So 4 selections right now for them. If they don't love the player that's on the board for them at 24, I expect that to be a trade down spot for them. But any team needs for them that really jump out at you with the Vikings after free agency?
I'd start thinking about what the long-term safety looks like for this team. You know, Harrison Smith is in year 14?
Yeah.
It's impressive as hell. But I would start thinking about that. I still might want to add a corner to this group, honestly.
They've got Mekhi Blackmon, who can step in, is probably going to get a shot to be a starter. They have Dwight McGlothern as well from Arkansas. Now, I wouldn't be leaning on McGlothern to be like a starter for you. I think that he'd really have to prove that. But I think the room's okay, but I wouldn't push back on you too much if you still wanted to add another top-tier corner.
It's that one spot, right? Like, you added Isaiah Rodgers, you have Byron Murphy back. It's more of adding another spot to that. I thought for a while it was going to be running back, and then they traded for Jordan Mason.
Mm-hmm.
So they got 2 starters at running back. I mean, if they want, this is a really good roster, man. Like,
really good roster.
If they want to get ahead 1 year for their 3rd wide receiver, they could draft a wide receiver now and have him be their number 3 in 2026. But that's all I got. Kind of crazy, but
maybe wide receiver.
Well, no, real talk. Like, real talk here. Safety.
Was it not before the first hour and a half of the pod? Wasn't real talk?
It woke me up.
What? Now it's real talk?
Now it's time to bear down here. Safety, another corner, and a backup quarterback.
Oh.
I mean, obviously they are aware of this, considering
they're going to sign a vet, though.
Yeah, they tried to get Daniel Jones, and he wanted to go somewhere where he could play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, as we sit here today, you have to sign a vet. You can't just have J.J. McCarthy and Brett Rippon going into the season.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And I'm not saying you have to go get Aaron Rodgers. Trust me, you do not need to do that.
No, and I don't think they will. I don't think they should.
Think so either.
Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota never really made sense to me. That really muddies the waters with J.J. McCarthy.
Well, it also just it puts a character into a room that I think is a very, very well set room.
Yeah,
like O'Connell and Flores, the way they lead the team. So many great personalities and team-focused personalities. You don't need Rodgers to take over that room. You just don't need it.
What about interior defensive line?
Yeah, they need a fat guy.
Well,
Jonathan Allen and Hargrave are pass rushers.
Well, they have Harrison Phillips.
Right, but you need another one.
But he's about to be 30. Javon Hargrave's 32. John Allen is 30, 31. And it's not really anybody in reserve that is like the next man up.
No.
Interior defensive line or wide receiver? I'll give you the call.
Oh, interior defensive line, because you rotate that position more.
Okay. All right. So the 3 needs for the Vikings: safety, corner, and interior defensive line. That's what we're going for, the updated team needs there for them. New England Patriots, a lot of moves for the Patriots. A lot of good moves, to be honest with you. Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, Harold Landry, Robert Spillane, Morgan Moses. Now they've added Garrett Bradbury since he's been cut by the Vikings, and they were able to bring him in. Mac Hollins, Kayvon Chason, Marcus Epps, Wes Schwesser, my goodness. How do you...
Go do a lap.
Wes Schweitzer.
There it is.
Moron. Devon Gottschalk, they also traded him off of the team.
Watching a human being unravel on a podcast is fucking hilarious. Over Wes Schweitzer.
Can we just have a real name, please?
All right, I'm back.
I've said the last name Carson Schlesinger so many times.
That's why.
That every single time I went to say...
Your brain was reintegrating like Severance. You were in one place and another with the draft and an actual NFL player. Unbelievable. All right.
Love to talk as a job. What are the Patriots' top needs here?
Build an offensive line.
Offensive line is the number one thing that I'm writing
Baby
down.
Steps. Morgan Moses, as long as he's healthy, can help you. I know people look at Bradbury as a bust, but he's an upgrade for them right now. It's offensive line. I'd say, honestly, tackle. or just all of offensive line. Wide receiver for sure. And then, honestly, even with Landry, who's older but will help, they need another pass rusher.
I think I also think they need another pass rusher.
The one area where you sit there and go like, they're good is corner. But everything else is up for debate.
I have, what did I write down here? Offensive tackle, offensive guard, wide receiver. Yeah. I didn't write down pass rusher, but I guess you can. Like, obviously, if Abdul Carter's on the board at number 4, I wouldn't be trading down. I would take him.
Right.
But I think the team needs that I need to list them at is offensive tackle, offensive guard. Honestly, interior offensive line and wide receiver. No, I'm just gonna write down offensive line.
That's fine.
That's
fine.
Offensive line, edge rusher, and then wide receiver for the Patriots. I think that makes sense. New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
Act of God, but somehow they did it. Signed Justin Reed. Signed Isaac Yiadom. They traded for Devon Gottschalk. Re-signed Chase Young. Re-signed Juwan Johnson. Re-signed Dante Pettis. Re-signed Landon Young. I don't know how they did it. Signed Will Clapp. Team needs for New Orleans. What do we got?
I mean, this team, man, they just can't help themselves.
They won't rebuild.
They absolutely
they won't do it.
They absolutely refuse to even think about rebuilding. They're like the Greek myth Sisyphus, the one that just had to roll the boulder up the hill, and every time he got near the top, it just rolled back down. Like, the Saints just embrace going nowhere. And I know it's grim because they're not an awful team, but they just will not reset. So, with that being said, that means their best chance is the draft. I think wide receiver, quarterback.
Oh.
Yeah, easily.
Bro, they've got legends on their quarterback.
And corner.
Roster.
You know,
Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener, Ben DiNucci. I'm not writing down quarterback. They're not taking one.
No, but I'm just saying how I feel. This is what this podcast is for. You agree on wide receiver?
Money. It's to get filthy rich. That's what this podcast is for.
Oh, man. A lot of defensive needs, though, too.
I would put wide receiver because I'm worried about Chris Olave's concussion history.
Yeah,
I'm worried about Rashid
Shaheed's
coming off of the knee injury.
Yeah, Bub means wide receiver 1 doesn't really hit.
No, it doesn't.
All right, so wide receiver for sure.
Yep.
Man, they're going to need a pass rusher.
I agree.
And they're going to need a corner. Losing Paulson and Debo stinks, man.
Yeah, Alontae Taylor plays the nickel. Khalid McKinstry plays one side.
Right.
Yiadom can play as one of their corners.
He could be a spot starter outside corner, but you'd like a long-term answer.
This roster is just a lot of names.
Yeah, they're never that bad. But they choose to be this way.
Like, I think their interior defensive line isn't good. But they just traded for Gottschalk.
Why? Like, why?
No idea.
He was not good last year, by the way.
They have Brian Brzee. They have Nate Shepard. They have Kalen Saunders. They have Christian Boyd, who I like. They have John Ridgeway. It's just a bunch of names.
Right.
Like, they have a bunch of backup defensive tackles. And I think they lack starters.
Yeah, that's correct.
I like Carl Granderson, by the way. I think
he's a good player.
Screaming at me that they have Carl Granderson. They have him listed as an edge. I know he can play inside and out.
Wide receiver, pass rusher. Crazy we're not talking about the offensive line, but I don't think it's in their top 3 needs.
No.
I'd like to add to it.
Corner.
Yep.
Wide receiver, edge, and corner.
Yep.
New York Giants. They signed Paulson and Debo. So this is where Paulson and Debo went. They also signed Javon Holland, 2 signings that I actually very like.
Yeah, very
very
good
much
moves.
like.
Really strong moves
for their secondary.
I mean,
Sean,
easy one here, right?
Would you say
Quarterback has to be on the list, obviously.
Well, obviously, 100%. Yeah. They signed Chauncey Golson. They signed James Hudson, Roy Robertson Harris, Jeremiah Ledbetter. Re-signed Darius Slayton. Greg Van Roten, re-signed him. Tommy DeVito, re-signed him. Amir Smith-Marset, Chris Manhertz. They re-signed all those guys. So for the Giants, yeah, I mean, it's quarterback, 100%. Biggest need, no question about it. I've said before, I feel bad for Giants fans because they tried at quarterback. And they're still just sitting here and have zero answers.
Yeah, it's desperate.
Only quarterback on the roster is Tommy DeVito. It's tough.
Desperate hours.
Interior defensive line, I think, is
somebody to play next to Dex.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And
then what's the last one?
I'd still add interior offensive line. I think John Michael Schmitz has really struggled. I think Greg Van Roten is not the long-term answer.
I get down with that. Interior offensive line, interior defensive line, quarterback for the New York Giants. Brings us to the New York Jets. So they signed Justin Fields, they signed Brandon Stevens, signed Andre Sisco, Josh Myers, which you talked about a little bit when we were talking about the Packers. Stone Smart to 1-year deal. Chris Boyd, Derek Nottie. Re-signed Jamie Sherwood, which I think was their big splash re-signing there. Released Devontae Adams, released Aaron Rodgers, released CJ Mosley. Signed Chuck Okorafor as well. Isaiah Oliver at the cornerback spot. Re-signed Jamin Davis for that 1-year deal. All right, you tell me, buddy. What are the Jets' top 3 needs?
Right tackle.
Okay.
Pass catcher, because they need both wide receivers and tight ends.
Okay.
And they need a defensive tackle. Glaring. If you're doing a fourth one, it's safety, but they can survive with Sisco and Tony Adams out there. They cannot survive with the defensive tackles they have after Quinn and Williams.
All right.
Easy.
There's the Jets. I don't mean to be quick on the Jets.
No, be quick on the Jets. It's that easy.
It's that easy.
Jets fans know it. They argue over it every day for pick number 7.
Do you have a leaning with pick number 7, which you think is more?
I can give you 3 players. I think it'll
just. But do you like philosophically?
Yeah.
Do you wish that they could? All right. Let's say it's in a vacuum. Let's say like you had the opportunity to get a really good player at any of these 3 positions, and this might not exist. This scenario might not exist for the NFL draft, but like this NFL draft. But let's say you could get a high-level starter at right tackle, at wide receiver, I should just say pass catcher, or interior defensive lineman. Is there a spot that you'd be like, I would rather than be able to get a high-impact player at this spot?
Yeah, I would always lean on the offensive line because they're so close.
So you say offensive tackle. That's fair.
They're so close because their 4 across from left tackle to right guard are really good, and they just don't have a right tackle unless Chuck starts. And then you look at D tackle, it's been pretty bad next to Quinn and Williams.
Yeah.
So as much as I love Tyler Warren,
right,
and I know they probably do too, but these are the tough questions you got to answer.
Philadelphia Eagles, they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson, released Darius Slay, released James Bradbury, didn't get Milton Williams, didn't re-sign Josh Sweat either, lost Mekhi Becton too from this Super Bowl winning team, but they re-signed Zach Bond, extended Saquon Barkley and Lane Johnson. They traded for Kenyon Green. Signed A.J. Dillon to back up Saquon Barkley. They signed Azeez Ojulari to make up for some edge rush depth. Also signed Josh Uche, Harrison Bryant at the tight end spot, Keelan Granson at the tight end spot, Adoree Jackson at corner. Eagles team needs. What do we think? Super Bowl champs. What could they do in the draft?
Well, I mean, they're absolutely loaded everywhere, even with the players they lose. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like, truly.
There's a reason why they are the champs.
Right. Even losing Becton, I'm confident in Tyler Steen as a starter. So, not even that concerned there. Man, I mean, where do you go with this team? Seriously. Like, if they traded Dallas Goedert, I would say tight end, which that's been floating. I don't know if that's going to actually happen.
Yeah. They kind of loaded up at tight end at maybe for that to happen.
I would take a third wide receiver that's better than Jahan Dotson.
I agree. I would like doing that.
Yeah.
For them. Just long term.
Right.
I think interior defensive line as well. I would say wide receiver, interior defensive line, because you have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, which you feel great about, but it'd be nice to get another interior defensive lineman in there to just make sure the factory is still running properly, if you will. So wide receiver, interior defensive line, and then corner. Right now, you have Quinyon Mitchell, you have Cooper DeJean, who were obviously great last year. But then it is a battle for one of those starting cornerback spots with Keely Ringo, Eli Ricks, Adoree Jackson.
Right. I don't hate that idea.
I'm going to say corner.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea. Just keep loading up at that position.
Right. That's what I would do. That's what I would do if I was
Good living if you're the Eagles.
Yeah, so those are my three positions that I feel like the Philadelphia Eagles should hit. Pittsburgh Steelers. They signed Darius Slay, who we talked about was no longer with the Eagles. Now he's with the Pittsburgh Steelers. They made a massive trade, trading for DK Metcalf, their second-round pick, and signing him to a 5-year, $150 million deal. They signed Juan Thornhill, another move that was underrated that I liked that was sort of late in free agency. Signed Mason Rudolph at quarterback, because right now they really don't have anything at quarterback. Signed Malik Harrison, signed Kenneth Gainwell to pair with Jalen Warren, who is RB1, I think, by default.
Right.
Not to make that sound insulting, but not basically saying Najee Harris isn't there anymore. They don't have Larry Ogunjobi. He signed elsewhere. Re-signed Scotty Miller. Re-signed Isaiah Loudermilk. Re-signed Ben Skowronek. They signed Brandon Eccles. They signed Donald Parham Jr. Should make sure that I note that. Needs for Pittsburgh. What do we got here?
Quarterback, running back, corner.
Quarterback, running back, corner. Yeah, I think that those are probably the big ones.
Pretty, simple there. I like that they brought in Brandon Eccles as a depth guy that's been able to be a spot starter for the Jets, but I wouldn't start him.
And I know they like Corey Trice. He's just been so hurt over the last, not just the year, but even going back to
They have bodies
college.
here, but what if you hit on one and now you have Porter Jr. and that player for the long term?
Yeah.
And Slay gives you a stopgap.
I think they're also going to take a good hard look at interior defensive line.
That's fair.
Cam Hayward's obviously playing incredibly well for how old he is.
Forever.
But
yeah.
You lose, right. But you lost Larry Ogunjobi. They've got Montravius Adams. They have Logan Lee. I think if the right player falls to them at 21 and they're not taking a quarterback with that spot, I think they could take like a Walter Nolan or a Kenneth Grant.
I think so too.
I think they'd be willing to make a splash at interior defensive line.
It's not a bad move.
So, yeah. But I don't think they would draft just any defensive lineman, but if they can make a splash there, I think that they would. The 49ers, a lot has changed with the 49ers. They released Kyle Juszczyk, which actually, no, they released Kyle Juszczyk, but then they brought Kyle Juszczyk back.
Yeah, him and Kyle Shanahan can't quit each other.
A little fake out there. Javon Hargrave was released, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, all those guys released. They traded Jordan Mason. They traded Deebo Samuel. Dre Greenlaw signed elsewhere. Charvarius Ward signed elsewhere. Talanoa Hufanga signed elsewhere. They signed DeMarcus Robinson. Mac Jones to be the backup quarterback. Saron Neal as a corner, Richie Grant as a safety, Jason Pinnock as a safety, which I don't hate. I actually like that move.
Yeah, me too.
It's just going to look different here for the 49ers. So what's your... Oh, lost Aaron Banks as well. I should have mentioned that as well. Niners. Offensive line.
Sure.
Big need for them. Would you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So offensive line. Let's go offensive line for them. I think...
Defensive line
tackle,
for sure. Oh, O-line, yeah.
Yeah, it could be tackle, could be guard. I would just say whichever spot you have the ability to upgrade over this draft and sort of have a 2-year plan for upgrading the offensive line. Like if you hit an offensive guard this year, you need to hit offensive tackle next year, depending on what happens with Trent Williams because he's not getting any younger. Would you say interior defensive line?
Yeah.
Is that what you said next?
Yeah.
Okay.
And corner.
Interior defensive line and corner. They're just going to have to make some roster adjustments. Given what they're probably going to pay Brock Purdy. They're going to have to nail it in the draft.
They started to rip this thing apart. So
yeah, they did. They've got to get better. I mean, even before this past year, even with that good roster that they had, struggled against run defense, struggled with their depth on the defense side of the ball. And so it's going to be a very interesting year for the 49ers. It really is. Seattle Seahawks, they lost, well, I shouldn't say they lost. They traded Geno Smith, but they replaced him with Sam Darnold.
Can't find him.
Yeah. They misplaced him. They
Wait, he's on the
misplaced DK
Raiders.
Metcalf. What'd you say?
He's on the Raiders. What happened?
He was in Vegas the whole time. So they moved on from DK Metcalf, but they brought in Cooper Kupp. They brought in DeMarcus Lawrence as well along defensive line. Brought in Marquez Valdez-Scantling, which is a coach connection with Clint Kubiak, with as their offensive coordinator now. And Marquez Valdez-Scantling played really well last year with the Saints when Kubiak was still there. Re-signed Ernest Jones, re-signed Jaron Reed, released Tyler Lockett, Draymond Jones, Roy Robertson-Harris, Rayshon Jenkins, George Fant, all those guys. What are we doing in Seattle here? Team needs for the Seahawks.
We are getting an interior offensive lineman for sure. I would say both a guard and a center. Why the hell not?
Yeah, they haven't made any additions along the interior offensive line.
Not any that will start.
None. Yep. Let's go guard. Let's go center. I think could absolutely use major upgrades at both those positions.
And then I'd still take a wide receiver. I was
gonna say, is wide receiver next?
Like, is Cooper Kupp gonna play 5 games? Is he gonna play 12? I don't know.
Yeah, and he plays a lot of the same stuff.
I was surprised.
JSN does.
Yeah, I was very surprised by this.
I am too.
But let's see how it goes.
Need a starting guard. Need a starting center. That was even independent of some of the other additions that they made on the offensive line. They had to get way better in those areas from what we saw last season. So still major areas for them. They have to address that. And thankfully, they've got the picks to do it, right? They've got pick 18, they have pick 50, and now they have pick 52 because of their trades with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Basically, what I'm trying to say is Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia, start looking at property in Seattle, Washington, because you are a Seattle Seahawk. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers made a very surprise signing when they signed Hassan Reddick. I did not think that they were going to be interested in Hassan Reddick, but it makes sense with him as a big-time one-on-one pass rush winner. They absolutely needed that. I just didn't think that they were going to be in on him given how everything went with the Jets last year. They brought in Anthony Walker to replace KJ Britt, but a lot of their moves were keeping guys in-house. Chris Godwin resigns, Ben Bredeson, Levante David, Greg Gaines, Kyle Trask, Anthony Nelson. So when I look at the Buccaneers and some of their team needs, I still think edge rusher is one of them. Even with the addition of Hassan Reddick, I still think they need to, if they can get a one-on-one pass rush winner at number 19 in the draft, I think they absolutely should do so. Corner remains a major need for this team. It was talked about, are they going to cut Jamel Dean? But the thing is, you can't cut Jamel Dean if you don't have anybody there. You can't just cut him and then have nobody to replace him. So until they have somebody to replace him, I think that they're going to keep him on the roster, but they might be able to upgrade in the draft depending on how things fall for them. And then I'm curious what their next need would be. Tight end, maybe? I mean, they like Cade Otton, but I think they believe they could upgrade over him there. Maybe interior defensive line, too. Logan Hall's in the last year of his deal. Greg Gaines wasn't great for them last year. Linebacker, certainly a need for this team. Servassier Dennis could play one of those linebacker spots, but I think it's linebacker or interior defensive line for them. I think they're pretty set at secondary, at safety. I think they got a lot of flexibility there. So I feel as though linebacker is probably the need that I would gravitate towards, is that third need for them.
It makes sense. I mean, they're a veteran team that a lot of their spots are about getting guys ready for the future.
Yep.
And that's a good place to be. And they do such a good job of taking care of their own and keeping their guys in-house. So
that's also how I would explain it. 2 more teams to go. Tennessee Titans are one of them. Interesting offseason for the Tennessee Titans. They signed Dan Moore Jr. to a lucrative contract, becoming the second richest Dan Moore Jr. In the world. 4 years, $82 million. Again, it's great money if you can get it, if you're Dan Moore.
Phenomenal.
Signed Draymond Jones, signed Cody Barton, signed Kevin Zeitler to play one of those offensive tackle spots. I do like that signing. Signed Xavier Woods, Van Jefferson. Re-signed Sebastian Joseph Day. Released Harold Landry. Released Chidobe Awuzie, which I think was a surprise deal for me with them moving on from Chidobe. Their team needs here. What do you got?
Wide receiver, for sure. I mean...
All right, so I'm going to write quarterback and pretend you didn't say wide receiver first.
And absolutely somebody to throw them the freaking ball.
No, wide receiver is a glaring need, especially with no Nick Westbrook-Akine there on the roster for them anymore. It's basically just Calvin Ridley, and that is it right now.
Yeah, and then they need an edge rusher. They're pretty easy. Like, they need a legit wide receiver. They need a quarterback, and they need somebody that can rush the passer.
Yep.
I like their secondary. I love the interior of their defensive line. They have solid running backs. Their offensive line is taking steps in the right direction. They're a very clear-cut team. Zeitler signing was a savvy play for them.
The what was?
Zeitler.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it makes that offensive line look a lot more complete.
I would agree with you. I would totally agree with you there. Commanders, boy, were they busy as well. Talk about guys who, man, re-signings, numerous. Bobby Wagner, Marcus Mariota, Zach Ertz, Noah Brown, Tress Way. We have some punter love here. Sheldon Day, Jeremy McNichols, John Bates, Jalen Holmes, Cleveland Farrell, Noah Igbenogany, Zane Gonzalez. They had released Jonathan Allen, and then from the outside, they brought in Javon Kinlaw. Massive deal. Might be an overpay. We'll see.
Might be
an overpay. We'll see. Got to give him the benefit of the doubt, you know? Got to get, hey, new scenery, new team. Got to give him the benefit.
Good money
of the
for a Javon Kinlaw. Definitely the richest Javon Kinlaw in the world.
The richest Javon Kinlaw that there is, no question about it. They bring in Will Harris to supplement them losing Jeremy Chin. They brought in two moves that I love for them is bringing the two Patriot guys, Jonathan Jones and Dietrich Wise, to be versatile players along their defense on the defensive line and in the cornerback room. Signed Eddie Goldman as well, Trent Scott, Nate Herbig. Traded for Laramie Tunsil, traded for Deebo Samuel. Those are the big moves that this team made. So really, I think you got to look at these things after the trades. Team needs for the Washington Commanders. What do we got here?
Well, they're sitting pretty nice right now because they were really, really aggressive. I think this team still needs another wide receiver because Deebo plays a very specific role where I'd rather have let's see what they can get from Luke McCaffrey, but I'd like to see another addition into this room.
What about running back?
It's a sneaky one. It's really sneaky because they kind of are just, they get like what they have to out of Brian Robinson Jr. and Austin Eckler. But it feels like if you had a dynamic player next to Jaden Daniels, you'd be like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? I don't hate it.
I'm going to write it down.
I don't hate it. I still think they need a pass rusher too.
Yes, I have edge on here as well.
Yeah, and they need a corner. They actually have some needs.
Do you think they should put corner above running back?
Yeah, because they can get by. I mean, it's kind of crazy, dude, that Dante Fowler had double-digit sacks for this team last year.
He had double-digit sacks
He had
for
a
them?
10.5. Dan Quinn squeezed a 10.5 sack season out of him.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Gator great.
Need a pass rusher.
Yep. And I can believe corner. You know, Marshawn Lattimore, you trade for Marshawn Lattimore. You're sort of committed to him this year. But what is he going to be this year and beyond? I think it would be smart to get another corner in there. I do agree with you. Because then you want to be able to use Mike Samers still as flexible as possible to put him in the best situation. So, all right, wide receiver, edge rusher, and corner. That's it for the Washington Commanders, and there we go. All 32 teams assessed post-free agency, updated those team needs for those guys. We would love to hear from you guys, all right? Let us know what you think of your favorite team, how we assess them. We know it was sort of quick for some of these teams, so we couldn't give as deep of a dive, but it's a 2-hour podcast, so there's only so much that we could do before our significant others start yelling at us. So let us know what you thought.
Me. The pod went too long. She said, see ya. Took the dog, left me the house.
Damn.
Major dub for me in video.
Yeah, I was going to say, hey, property, brother. It's good. It's good. Appreciating assets. That's what we need, as long as that's in the name. Let us know what you thought of our assessments of your teams and the team needs. Tell us if we did this correctly. Tell us what your team needs would be for your specific team. Best way to do that, youtube.com/@NFL Stock Exchange. You can follow the show on a lot of different social media platforms, on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok as well, @NFLSC Show. If you want to hit us up, @Tampa Bay Trey, @Connor J. Rogers on both Twitter and Instagram there. So make sure you're following all the social media platforms. Again, if you're watching this episode and you were either just cutting in or you made it to the end, whatever it is, if you don't subscribe to the podcast, please do so. We would absolutely love to have you as part of the community and as part of the family. This is really where the fun begins for us, and we start to get into a lot of different stuff. We get into the collab mock draft series. We're getting into those final position rankings, those final movements on the big board. We're getting into your favorite day 3 gems, right? Because a lot of people have just been talking about the day 1 guys for the last 3 months. Well, we're going to start diving into those day 3 prospects that you watch and listen to this show for. So if you are not subscribed, don't miss any of it. Hit that subscribe button. That is the best way to do it. Connor, you got anything else before we get out of here?
No, this was really good, though, because it just going through the rosters just gives you, once again, a picture of the NFL draft and what teams are attacking, what they feel like. How many times on this show today, Trevor, did we say the words interior offensive line, interior defensive line, wide receiver, running back? Like they're telling you the areas of the draft they believe in, and how they attack their rosters is going to be pretty clear that they feel that way.
Yep, it's going to be fun moving forward. I hinted at the Collab mock draft series is going to start soon. Could be starting as soon as next week. So, by the way, for everybody that made it this far on the podcast, so we want to do a better job of bringing you this show on a consistent basis. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to target Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 p.m. Eastern. That is when we are going to schedule our episodes to drop. Now, sometimes our schedules are going to get in the way of that, but we want to be more consistent for you guys, so you can expect these episodes to drop at a certain time, and you can expect it every single week. So honestly, it'd be great to see more of you involved with the comments and going back and forth. That's a part that we love about the show. So we're just trying to build the community as best we can. So we've settled in on Tuesdays and Thursdays because we think that we can have these shows stay with that structure even when we get into the season. That's the goal there for us. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we're trying to give you something to look forward to there at 10 p.m. here on this YouTube channel. So this episode obviously came out on Thursday at 10 p.m. Next week, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to have the first edition of the Collab Mock Draft Series on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Should we tell them who the guest is?
No, hide the guest.
All right. We're going to make you guys wait.
Hide the guest. I think it hits a little better.
It's a fan favorite. If you guys want to take guesses on who you think it is, please, again,
well, you
fire
gave
off
away
in
that
comments.
it's not Bengal.
It's
So that's good. There's your one hint. It's not Bengal.
The rivalry begins. Shout out whoever you would like to see on the Collab Mock Draft Series, because we only have a handful of weeks before we get to draft weekend, but we would love to. This is a podcast for you guys. So whoever you want to see us collaborate with, we will try to make it happen. But the first one, we know you guys are going to love because you love it every year. So I'm very excited for that one to kick things off. Until then, I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Connor Rogers saying thank you so much for, once again, watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. We'll see you guys next week.